The cold was not a temperature. It was a weight, pressing against his ribs, crushing the air from his lungs in jagged gasps that tasted of rust and old blood. Black water filled his nose, thick with silt and the metallic tang of decay, while the roar of collapsing infrastructure vibrated through the floor plates above, shaking the dust from the ceiling into the dark liquid. Elias Venn clawed at the slick surface of the desk in front of him, his fingers finding purchase on cracked wood, but the room was sinking. The alarms were not sounds anymore. They were pulses in his teeth, a rhythmic warning that the walls were losing the war against the outside world. He kicked upward, breaking the surface with a violent splash, gasping for air that felt too thin to sustain him, his eyes adjusting to the dim, emergency red glow of the rusty office. The water was rising fast, lapping at the edge of the desk where papers floated like dead leaves. Elias Venn, former public defender, now drowning in a prison level that didn't exist on any map he recognized. If he didn't find a way out in the next 3 minutes, the soul-corroding tide would turn his lungs into slag and his mind into static. He gripped the edge of the desk, his knuckles white, and looked around for an exit that wasn't currently underwater. The water surged, knocking him back against the chair. He scrambled upright, slipping on the wet floor. "Bailiff," he croaked, his voice raw from the fluid in his throat. Report status. The figure standing by the door was a nightmare of polished steel and grim efficiency, a Bailiff 9 whose faceplate reflected the red light with dead indifference.
Upper exits locked by Imperial Order, Warden.
Its voice a monotone synthesis.
Containment collapse detected in Sector 4. Soul-corroding water influx imminent. All personnel advised to secure their positions. I'm not securing a position, I'm trying to stay alive. Open the armory.
The armory is sealed under Warden Prime authorization. Override it. Now the bailiff did not move. Authorization required. Previous warden missing. System unresponsive. Elias looked at the rising water, then at the ledger lying on his desk, its pages fluttering in the draft from the vents. He grabbed a handful of papers, pulling them closer. 3 names. 3 inmates scheduled for execution tomorrow. No convictions attached to their names. Just blank spaces where justice should have been.
If they sealed us in here,
Gripping the cracked brass keyring he found in his pocket.
then this is not an evacuation problem, it is a murder scene.
Prison sovereign system activated. Facility emergency level 97 flooding detected. Authority granted. Inspect 1 sentence. Warden survival probability 0.03%. 3 days earlier, Elias Venn sat in the back of the transport van, his wrists bound by cuffs that felt too tight, his head pounding from the sedative they'd injected him with. The ride had been too smooth, too long, and the view outside the tinted windows had shifted from city lights to dense, impenetrable forest. He watched the landscape blur, trying to parse the coordinates on the tablet mounted in front of him. Blackgate. Level 97, a dead-end prison level.
You're making a mistake.
Leaning forward as much as the chains allowed.
I don't know who you are, but I'm not going quietly.
The guard beside him didn't look at him. He just stared ahead, his face obscured by a helmet. You won't have a choice. Elias looked out the window again. The trees were gone. In their place was a massive, brutalist structure of black stone and steel, rising from the earth like a tomb. The van screeched to a halt in front of a heavy iron gate that groaned open at their approach. As they dragged him out, Elias saw the first inmate waiting for them, a man with wild eyes and a gaunt face, shackled to a pole. "Welcome to Blackgate," the guard said, shoving Elias forward. "Pray you survive the week." Elias stumbled, his hands still bound, and looked up at the towering walls. He didn't know what was waiting for him inside. But he knew one thing: he wouldn't let them break him. Not yet. The red light pulsed, casting long, jagged shadows across the flooded office floor. Elias kept his grip on the desk, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. The system notifications hung in the air before his eyes, translucent and mocking, their blue text contrasting sharply with the crimson gloom of the room. He ignored them for a moment, focusing instead on the Bailiff 9. The machine stood rigid, its optical sensors fixed on the rising water level, waiting for input it couldn't give without authority. Elias needed that authority. He didn't have time to argue logic with a machine programmed for obedience. He needed to assert dominance.
You are standing in my office.
His voice steady despite the chill seeping through his clothes.
I am the warden of level 97. That makes you mine. Your protocols do not distinguish between a missing superior and an active one. Check the biometric lock on the door.
The bailiff's head tilted slightly, a mechanical twitch.
Biometric match invalid. Previous warden biometrics absent. Mine are present.
He stepped forward, splashing into the ankle-deep water. The cold bit at his skin, but he forced himself to remain upright. I am alive, therefore. I am in charge. Override the lockout. Access the armory code directly from my terminal.
I cannot verify your identity against the central database without network access.
Network connectivity is severed. Then use local cache. The previous warden's protocols are stored locally for emergency succession. Query the cache for successor authorization. Input my retinal scan and voice print. It will take 3 minutes to compile the hash. We don't have 3 minutes.
He pointed at the ledger on the desk.
Look at that book. The names are there. Jackson Vale, Mirel Ardent, Naraquil. Execution orders for tomorrow.
No convictions. No records. They were brought here to die because someone wanted them gone. If I am the warden, I hold their lives in my hands.
You will give me the keys to stop that.
The bailiff remained silent, its internal fans whirring loudly in the confined space. The water was rising again, creeping up toward the knees of Elias's trousers. He could feel the weight of the building pressing down, the structural groans of a facility failing under the pressure of the soul-corroding tide outside. He couldn't wait for a full verification. He had to act.
Listen to me.
Leaning in close to the machine's faceplate.
If that water breaches the control room, we both die. If it breaches the lower levels, 300 people die. I am giving you a direct order. Access the armory for Valor and his unit. You will say he is authorized by the warden for emergency containment procedures. Is that clear?
I do not have clearance to arm inmate.
Inmate classification is immutable. Inmate classification changes when an execution is halted. Check the central logs again. If I am declared warden, even temporarily, my word is law. Do you want to be complicit in a mass murder, or do you want to follow orders? Choose one now.
The bailiff's optical sensors flickered, cycling through colors before settling back to a cold, dead gray. Processing, it said. Querying local successor cache. Match found. Elias Venn. Rank, warden. Status, active. Elias exhaled slowly. The tension in his shoulders didn't vanish, but the immediate threat of instant dismissal did.
Good. Now execute the override. Open the armory to key access code Omega 9, and initiate a lockdown on the upper ventilation shafts. Cut off their escape routes. They can't flee if they can't breathe. Executing.
It turned toward the heavy steel door at the back of the office, its limbs extending with hydraulic hiss. Before we get into the story, do me a quick favor. Like this video, subscribe, and comment what story you want to see next. Now, let's begin. Armory access granted to Warden Venn. Key access code Omega 9 recognized. Unlocking, the lock on the armory door clicked, a sharp, satisfying sound in the damp room. Elias didn't wait for it to fully open. He shoved the bailiff aside and waded toward it. "Come with me," he said.
I need a soldier who knows how to use a rifle. You're built like one. I am a peacekeeper protocol.
Following him,
My directive is order, not combat. Then help me impose some.
he kicked the armory door open. The shelves inside were pristine, untouched by the decay outside. Rifles lined the racks, their barrels gleaming under the emergency lights. Elias grabbed 2 assault rifles, checking the chambers with practiced ease from his past life of strategy games. He tossed one to the bailiff. Catch. The bailiff caught the weapon effortlessly.
I am not authorized to fire on human targets. Only if they are breaching containment.
He slung a rifle over his shoulder and checked the mag.
And right now, everything outside this room is a breach. We need to get to Ash Cell 13. That's where Valor is. If he's as good as the rumors say, he'll be waiting for a chance to fight back. I'm giving it to him.
Valor is classified as Class A lethal.
He has killed 7 guards in his cell block. Then he's useful.
He moved toward the door, stepping carefully over the puddles. The heavy steel door groaned, shut behind them, sealing out the rising tide's distant roar. Elias didn't stop moving. The water followed at his heels, a cold, creeping shadow. Valor stood in the center of Ash Cell 13's viewing gallery, his back to the glass. He was larger than Elias had expected, his frame corded with muscle that spoke of years spent in silence rather than exercise. His hands were bound in front of him by magnetic cuffs, but he held a shard of broken ceramic like a dagger. Elias raised his rifle, not aiming it at Valor but at the ceiling cameras.
Drop the shiv.
Valor didn't turn. He slowly lowered the ceramic shard, letting it clatter to the floor. The warden finally shows up, he said, his voice a low rumble.
Or did they send a substitute? A puppet with a gun? I am not a puppet.
Stepping into the gallery, the bailiff flanked him, its rifle raised but angled down. And you're not getting out of this cell unless you help me keep the rest of them alive. There's no trial for you, Valor. Just execution orders signed by someone who wants your name off the books. Valor turned then. His eyes were pale, almost translucent, and devoid of fear.
Then why are you here? To watch me die? Or to join me? To give you a choice.
He tossed a set of keys onto the floor between them. They landed with a sharp clink against the metal grate. Those keys open your cuffs. In exchange, you secure this sector. Mirella and Nara are in cells adjacent to yours. They're framed too. If we don't move now, they burn tomorrow. Valor looked at the keys, then at Elias's face. He studied him for a long moment, searching for deception.
Why should I trust a man who just walked out of a flooded office with a machine in tow? Because I'm the only one standing between you and the dark.
He jerked his head toward the corridor where Mirella's cell lay.
And because if you refuse, I leave you here to drown when the upper decks give way. Your call.
Mirella peered at her own viewing glass, pressing a hand against the reinforced pane. Her hair was wet, her uniform torn. She looked exhausted but alert. Valor didn't look at her. He picked up the keys.
It's soul-corrosive sludge.
Keeping his voice low so the bailiff wouldn't process it as a threat, it eats organic matter and memory alike. The previous warden knew what was coming. He sealed the exits to save himself, not us. I'm reversing that order. Mirelle slammed her fist against the glass.
You can't reverse anything. The vents are clogged with ash. The guards are turning. They're not human anymore. Then we'll deal with the non-humans first.
He turned to Valor.
Unchain yourself. Then go to cell 14. Nara is in there. She knows the layout of the lower tunnels. We need to get those two out of the block before the guards realize they're loose.
Valor slid the key into his cuff. The mechanism whirred and released. He rubbed his wrists, flexing his fingers.
And if I kill you once I'm free?
He asked.
Then you prove my assessment was wrong.
He checked his rifle's magazine.
But if you don't, you'll be dead before noon, so make your move.
Valor stepped forward, picking up the ceramic shard again. He looked at it, then at Elias. I'll come with you, he said.
Not because I trust you, but because I want to see who's holding the leash. Good enough for today.
He gestured to the door.
Mirella is next. Then Nara. We form a perimeter. If any guard approaches, we take them down non-lethally if possible. We need witnesses, not bodies. Bodies attract more guards.
Mirelle stopped pounding on the glass. She looked at Valor, then at Elias. Non-lethal? She whispered.
Against corrupted guards? We don't have a choice. This is a prison, not a battlefield. We survive by holding the line, not breaking it.
The bailiff's optics flared red. Corruption levels in Sector 4 are at 80%, it reported.
Guard loyalty subroutines are compromised. Recommendation: immediate evacuation of high-value assets. We're not evacuating yet.
He looked at Valor.
You heard the machine. You're Asset 1. Move to Cell 14. Check on Nara. She's our map.
Valor nodded, his expression unreadable. Lead the way, Warden, he said, using the title with a hint of mockery. But he followed Elias out of the gallery, his steps heavy but sure. Elias knew he had bought time. Valor moved past Elias, his massive frame blocking the view of the corridor cameras as he stepped into the wet concrete hall. The water lapped at his boots, dark and oily. He did not look back. Mirelle? His voice carrying easily over the hum of the facility's failing power grid. I'm still here. Mirelle's voice came from behind the glass, tight with tension. She was pressing her ear to the pane, listening to the footsteps of the man she had been told was a monster.
Are you going to break my walls too? No walls are breaking today.
Stepping up beside Valor, but keeping his rifle lowered, pointing it toward the floor. The bailiff followed, its hydraulic legs splashing rhythmically in the rising sludge.
Valor is securing the sector. That means you're safe from the guards for now. But you need to stay away from the doors. Valor doesn't care about my safety, he cares about breaking things. I care about survival.
Valor replied, not turning his head.
You are either useful or you are dead weight. Right now, you are neither. You are a variable.
That sounds like an insult. Nera's voice cut in from the next cell over, sharp and clear despite the distance. She was young, her voice lighter than Morelli's but laced with a cold fear. I know how this place works. The water doesn't just rise, it hunts. If you open my door, the corruption spreads faster. Elias raised a hand, silencing the bailiff before it could speak. Nera, he said, keeping his eyes on Valor's back.
Valor is opening your cell. Not because he trusts us, but because he knows we're all drowning together. Can you get out of there without triggering the biocontamination alarms?
There was a pause, long and heavy, filled only by the gurgle of the toxic water rising along the corridor walls.
If I touch the door mechanism,
I need a filter. The air in my cell is already thick with spores. We have filters in the armory.
He nodded to the bailiff.
Fetch one, non-porous, now.
The bailiff hesitated, its red optics narrowing as it processed the command against the rising threat level.
Risk assessment, high. Leaving the warden unguarded is inadvisable. Do it, or we'll all be dead before you finish your sentence. Go.
The machine turned and marched back toward the Rustkey office, its heavy footsteps echoing down the wet hall. Valor stopped in front of Nera's cell. He didn't touch the keycard yet. He looked at Morel through the glass between them. You're quiet, he said to her. Because I'm calculating how long you'll take to turn on us, Morel shot back.
Elias thinks he's playing chess. You think you're playing war. We are just pieces. Pieces have value.
He turned to Nera.
you know the tunnels. Elias knows the keys. I know how to kill what's in them. Do you know which way is up? Up is dead, down is wet, left is empty, right is where the guards are turning into something else. If we go right, we might find a way out. Or we might find a mouth that eats iron.
Elias stepped forward, his boots sinking into the sludge.
Then we don't go left or right yet. We secure this level first. Nera, what's in your cell? Describe it. It's not just my cell.
Her voice trembling slightly.
It's a node. The previous warden used us to map the soul corrosion patterns. My name isn't on a conviction ledger, it's on a containment chart. If they let me go, they lose their data. Then we take your data with us.
He looked at Valor.
Unlock her, now.
Valor pressed the key against the scanner. The door hissed open, revealing Nera standing in the darkness of her cell, wrapped in a thin gray blanket. She didn't step out immediately. She looked at Elias with wide, terrified eyes. Why are you helping us? She whispered.
No one helps the sentenced, because I'm not helping the sentenced.
His voice flat and hard.
I'm helping the survivors. And right now, that's us. Step out. Slowly.
Nera took a breath, shivering, and stepped over the threshold. The moment her foot touched the wet floor of the corridor, the lights flickered violently, casting long, jagged shadows across the wall. A low groan echoed from somewhere deep in the facility, a sound like stone grinding against bone.
They're close.
Her voice tight.
The guards. They're not human anymore. Then we stop treating them like people.
He turned to Valor.
Keep her between us. If she falls behind, leave her. Don't look back.
I don't abandon my team, Valor rumbled, though his eyes remained on the darkened corridor ahead.
You don't have a team yet, you have assets. And right now, Nera is our most valuable asset. Keep her alive, and you might get your freedom. Fail, and you drown with us.
Nera pulled her blanket tighter, her teeth chattering as the water level climbed to her knees. They're coming, she said, pointing toward the junction of the corridor where shadows detached themselves from the walls. 3 of them. Corrupted. Valor raised his rifle, the barrel steady despite the trembling in his hands.
Can I shoot? No.
Stepping between Valor and the advancing darkness.
If you fire, the noise brings every guard on level 97 down on us. We move now.
Move where?
Her voice cracking.
The doors are sealed. The armory has a maintenance shaft.
Her eyes wide with panic.
It leads to Ash Cell 13. It's the only place that isn't monitored by the central AI. Then we go there.
He looked at Bailiff 9, which had returned from the office, carrying a heavy duffel bag of filters and medical supplies.
Can you carry her? I can carry 3.
Its voice devoid of urgency.
I cannot carry hope. Focus on survival.
He grabbed Nera's arm, pulling her away from the cell door.
Valor, flank left. Morel, stay put until we signal. Do not open your door for anyone else. What if they come for me?
Morel cried out,
Then you pray,
shoving Nera toward the maintenance hatch.
and I make sure the prayer is heard.
The water surged higher, cold and black, lapping at their thighs. The shadowy figures in the corridor took a step forward, their forms shifting and distorting like oil on water. Elias didn't wait to see if they were human anymore. He knew what they had become. Go, he said, pushing Nera into the dark opening of the shaft. Now. Nera scrambled up the ladder, her hands slipping on the wet rungs. Valor covered their retreat, his rifle raised, though he knew bullets would do little against what was coming. Elias stayed behind for a moment, watching the water rise, calculating the seconds they had left before the level became a tomb.
Varden.
Bailiff 9 said, its red optics fixed on Elias.
Survival probability has dropped to 0.03%.
Elias didn't answer. Elias Venn woke with his face pressed against freezing black water. The taste of rust and old blood filled his mouth as he gasped, dragging himself up through the stagnant tide that flooded the Rusky office. Alarms screamed through level 97, a rhythmic mechanical wail that vibrated in his teeth. Above him, the ceiling groaned under the weight of the mountain, but below the surface of the water, something darker than the liquid moved. Report, Elias choked out, shaking water from his hair. He stood on the edge of the desk, his boots slipping on the polished mahogany which was already submerged to the ankles. Bailiff 9 materialized from the shadows near the door, its armor slick with condensation and its eyes glowing with a faint, frantic blue light. All upper exits have been locked by Imperial Order, Warden. The lift shafts are sealed. They want us dead. Elias gripped the desk edge, his knuckles white. He looked at the ledger on the wet surface before him, the pages warped and soft with moisture. He inherited memories of this body, memories of a man weak in spirit but strong in law, and now those memories were his own.
If they sealed us in here, then this is not an evacuation problem.
His voice steady despite the cold seeping into his bones.
It is a murder scene.
Sir.
Bailiff 9 said, the mechanical joints of its neck whirring.
Containment collapse is imminent. Soul-corroding water floods level 97 in 10 days. Survival probability for all staff and inmates drops to 0 without intervention.
Elias opened the ledger of unfinished sentences. The ink bled across the page, revealing names that did not match any conviction records. 3 inmates scheduled for execution had no lawful crime attached to their names. They were ghosts on paper, destined to die so the Empire could hide its own failures.
Open the office armory.
Closing the book with a slap that echoed in the flooded room.
Take me to Ash Cell 13.
The bailiff hesitated, a servo clicking in its throat.
Ash Cell 13 houses a Class Alpha Demon King. The restraints are ancient. He has broken 6 wards in the past decade. Then I will need a new ward.
Stepping out of the water and onto the dry patch of the office floor near the armory lever. He pulled it down. Heavy steel doors clanged open, revealing rifles and heavy shackles coated in holy salt. We are not running from this level, we are securing it. Bailiff 9 raised a weapon-mounted hand, aiming at Elias's chest for a fraction of a second before lowering it again.
Your command is recorded, Warden, but the loyalty metrics are failing. The guards do not follow you because they respect you. They follow you because the system forces them. Then I will make them want to follow me.
Grabbing a heavy iron key ring from the rack, it felt cold and dead in his hand. Lead the way. If this prison is a grave, I intend to turn it into a fortress. The journey through the corridors was a descent into madness. The walls wept black slime, and the air grew thick with the scent of sulfur and rotting flesh. Guards they passed did not salute. They stared with hollow eyes, their uniforms torn, their weapons abandoned in piles of dust. One guard dropped his rifle as Elias walked by, trembling. The warden returns, the guard whispered to no one, then collapsed into a fit of coughing up black sludge. Elias did not stop. He could not afford to look at the dying world around him. His focus was Ash Cell 13. At the end of the corridor, a massive door of obsidian barred their path. It was etched with runes that burned with cold fire. Bailiff 9 raised its scanner. The locks are intact, but the energy signature is unstable. The bailiff reported. He is awake. Elias placed his hand on the cold stone. He could feel the presence behind it, a vast ancient hunger waiting to be fed. He did not retreat. He turned the key in the lock mechanism, the heavy tumblers clicking into place with a sound like bones breaking. The door swung inward. The chamber beyond was scorched, the floor cracked and stained with centuries of dried blood. In the center, chained upright by 4 massive iron pillars, stood Valar Ashblind. He was tall, his skin the color of ash, his eyes covered by a blindfold of woven starlight that pulsed with dim light. Chains thick as tree trunks bound his wrists and ankles, glowing with suppression runes that flickered weakly. Valar tilted his head, listening to the air shift as Elias entered. Another clerk, the Demon King said, his voice deep and resonant, shaking the dust from the ceiling. "Do you come to read me my death warrant, or to beg for your own?" Elias stepped into the light of the corridor, holding the keyring up like a shield. He did not flinch at the heat radiating from the demon's body. "I come to read your sentence, and yours is wrong." Valar laughed, a sound like grinding stones. "My sentence was written by kings who fear what they cannot burn. You are small, your heart beats too fast. You smell of fear and iron. Why should I listen to you?" Elias activated the prison sovereign system. He saw it overlay his vision in shimmering red text. Prison sovereign system activated. Facility, Blackgate Deep, level 97. The data streamed across his vision, cold and absolute. The air in the cells seemed to vibrate as Elias focused on the inmate before him,
Look at me.
stepping closer to the edge of the scorched floor.
I am not here to read you a warrant. I am here to show you a contradiction.
Valar shifted his weight, the chains clanking with a sound like falling boulders. The blindfold did not move, but his head turned sharply toward Elias's voice. "A contradiction. The first crown does not make errors. It breaks wills. It crushes bone. It does not contradict."
The record says you were convicted of treason against the first crown.
His voice steady despite the pressure in his chest. He held up the ledger, letting the pages catch the dim light from the corridor. "It lists your crimes, seizing territory, defying royal decrees, and waging war against the sovereign." Valar's lips curled into a sneer. "And was I wrong? They came with lies and steel. I answered with fire. That is not treason. That is survival. You know this. You look like a man who has read too many books and never held a sword." Elias ignored the insult. He activated the inspection protocol in his mind. The system responded instantly, pulling data from the ether, cross-referencing Imperial archives with the prison's deepest locks. Inmate inspection complete. Valar Ashblind. Crime listed. Treason against the First Crown, evidence conflict detected. First Crown violated ceasefire. The text burned red in his eyes. Elias lowered the ledger slowly. "You were imprisoned after accepting a royal ceasefire." The silence that followed was heavy, thicker than the water Elias had just waded through. Valar went still, the chains going slack for a moment before snapping taut again, as he resisted the urge to lunge forward.
That is a lie.
But his voice lacked its earlier mockery. It was tight, controlled.
The ceasefire was a trap. You know it. The Empire knows it. The records are sealed, buried under layers of imperial decree.
But the sovereign system sees the truth. The First Crown broke its own oath to seize your territory. You have no lawful conviction attached to your name.
You are a ghost in their ledger.
Valar let out a low breath, a sound of genuine surprise mixed with bitterness.
So, what does a clerk care about technicalities? If the Empire is wrong, then I should be free. Or dead. Either outcome serves them better than letting me breathe this ash-choked air. Not if you have something they fear more than your freedom.
He stepped closer until he was within arm's reach of the massive chains. Level 97 is dying. The upper exits are locked. The guards are corrupted. In 10 days, soul-corroding water will flood this level and bury us all alive. The Empire intends to let you drown along with the rest. Valar tilted his head, the starlight blindfold pulsing brighter.
And you? You woke up in the drowning pool. You have the keys. You can walk away if you find a way. I cannot walk away. If this level collapses, the shockwave triggers the seals on levels 1 through 96. Every monster, every god, every demon king in Blackgate Deep goes free. The Empire will not just lose a prison, they will lose their capital. And I am the Warden. My survival is tied to the containment.
So you come to bargain.
He leaned forward, his chains rattling.
What do you offer? A quick death? Or a slow one, a contract?
The system highlighted an option in his vision. Contract formed, the Ashblind Compact. It was dangerous, risky, and the first of its kind. I can offer you a partial release, limited movement within level 97. Authority over the remaining loyal guards, but in exchange you must defend this level for 72 hours. Valor laughed, but it was a hollow, dry sound. 72 hours? Against what?
The water? The rats? Or the other inmates who will come for my head when they hear I have made a deal with a clerk? Against the breakout.
He didn't flinch as Valor's presence flared, heat radiating from the Demon King like a furnace door opening.
There are riots forming in the lower blocks. The poison in the supplies is spreading to the staff. When the lockdown lifts partially, which it will as the structural integrity fails, the inmates will attack the upper tiers. You are the only one strong enough to hold the line, and why should I trust you?
You promise me justice, but you offer me a chain that burns my skin just to stand here. Forgiveness is sweet wine for those who have tasted freedom. I want nothing from you except proof that your words are not empty air. I cannot forgive you.
He reached out and gripped the nearest iron pillar binding Valor's wrist. The metal was hot enough to blister skin, but he held on. Forgiveness is a privilege of the sovereign, not the warden. But I can promise you a trial. A public one. One where the evidence of the First Crown's betrayal is read aloud in the court of the dead. Valor went very still. The air in the cell dropped 10 degrees. A trial, he whispered. You would risk the Empire's wrath for that?
I would burn my own reputation to ash to ensure it happens.
He did not let go of the hot iron pillar. His palm was blistering, the skin turning red and raw against the metal, but he held on until his muscles locked in place.
You want proof? I am giving you the mechanism of your freedom. Do not mistake my desperation for weakness.
Valor's head snapped up, the blindfold straining as if he were trying to look directly through it at Elias's face. The heat radiating from him intensified, smelling of sulfur and old dried blood. The words seemed to taste strange in his mouth.
In Blackgate Deep? With whom? The ghosts? The system records everything.
He gestured to the air around them, where invisible data streams flowed like water. The prison sovereign system is not just a lock, it is a witness. It sees the truth of every sentence passed within these walls. If I bind us together, the contract becomes a record that even the First Crown cannot erase. It becomes history before it happens. Valor remained silent for a long moment. The only sound was the drip of water from the corroded ceiling and the low, mournful hum of the failing power grid. Then he exhaled a long, ragged breath that clouded in the chilled air.
You are very young.
Your voice shakes, but your hands do not. That is rare for clerks. I am not here to be brave.
He tightened his grip on the pillar until his knuckles turned white.
I am here to survive, and you are the only asset I have that matters right now. Refuse, and we both drown in 11 days. Accept, and I give you a chance to force them to acknowledge your innocence. And what do you get from this compact? You gain time, you buy yourself hours, but I become your tool. A weapon pointed at my former friends, or perhaps my enemies who still breathe above ground.
You become the warden of level 97, Elias corrected him. For 72 hours you have authority over the cell blocks. You decide who stays locked and who is released to help defend the perimeter. I cannot do that alone. My staff loyalty is 4%. Yours could be different. Valor laughed again, but this time it was softer, devoid of its earlier bite.
You assume your system can command loyalty from a demon king. You assume chains of law can bind something older than your empire. Law binds everyone, even you. Especially you. Your crime is treason because you broke an oath to the crown. But if the crown broke the oath first, the law still applies, it just points in a different direction. The system sees the breach, it creates a vacuum, and into that vacuum I offer you a new oath.
Valor tilted his head back, staring up at the dark, cracked ceiling.
A new oath, to the sentence, not to me. Never to me personally. To the structure of justice I am building. You will follow the rules you helped break. That is the only loyalty a demon can give without lying.
Valor was quiet for another 10 seconds. Then, he spoke, his voice dropping to a whisper that vibrated in Elias's chest.
If I agree. If I sign this compact, you promise the trial? I promise the trial, and I promise that when it comes, you will stand before the court not as a prisoner, but as a witness against the first crown.
And if I win?
He leaned forward until his face was inches from Elias's. Elias could feel the heat of his breath, dry and hot as an oven.
You go free.
He did not blink.
Fully. Unchained. And I will accompany you to the upper levels to ensure the seals do not follow.
Valor pulled back slightly, a smirk touching the corner of his mouth. Bold words for a man standing in a dying cell with no backup. But I am tired of chains that burn. I am tired of silence. Very well, Clerk Venn. Or Warden. He tested the title on his tongue. Let us see if your system can hold a demon's word. Elias felt the system pulse in his vision. The red text flared bright and sharp. Contract formed. The Ashblind Compact. Prisoner loyalty. 0%, 18%. The iron chains binding Valor's wrists groaned. A deep, resonant tone filled the chamber, shaking the dust from the walls. The metal began to glow, not with the harsh red of suppression runes, but with a warm, pulsing gold light that spread from the cuffs up Valor's arms. The blindfold shifted, the starlight woven into it aligning with the new energy flowing through the locks. Valor looked at his hands as the chains turned from dull iron to red gold oathlight. He flexed his fingers. The links clicked, no longer restricting movement, but rather guiding it. There was awe in his voice, rare and dangerous.
They are not gone.
He stepped back, wincing as he pulled his blistered hand away from the pillar. Valor flexed his fingers, the links singing with a clear, high pitch that cut through the damp air. They hold, he said.
But they do not burn. Oathlight is heavier than iron, but lighter than guilt.
He rubbed his reddened palm against his tunic, wincing at the raw heat. It demands obedience, not just restraint. You will feel it pulling you toward your duties. He stepped forward, the chains trailing behind him like a golden tail. The air around him shimmered with residual heat.
You have bound us together, Warden. This changes everything. Do you realize what you have just done? You have given a Demon King agency within a cage designed to break men like me. I have given you a weapon, and I have made myself responsible for it. If you break the compact, the system will collapse the cell block on top of us both.
Valor stopped.
It is necessary. I cannot trust you not to use this power for your own ends. Not yet. The contract ensures our survival is linked. If you harm the level, you harm yourself. If you defend it, you earn your freedom.
Valor asked. He gestured vaguely toward the corridor outside Ash Cell 13.
There are thousands in this tomb. They smell fear. They smell weakness. Your 4% staff loyalty will not stop them when the water rises, which is why I need you to secure the upper tiers. You have authority over the guards now, Valor. The system recognizes your claim. Go to the armory. Issue orders. If they hesitate, remind them that the crown above wants us dead. Loyalty to a dead king is fragile. Loyalty to a living warden is practical.
Valor chuckled, a low rumble in his chest.
You are teaching me to be cruel to save the innocent, a useful lesson. But who will you trust in the cell blocks? The rioters? The poisoned? I have other cards.
He turned away from Valor, walking toward the heavy iron door of the cell. His legs felt like lead, every step a struggle against the exhaustion of waking up in a drowning world.
But you must hold the line first. 72 hours, Valor. That is the price.
He did not move to follow Elias. He stood in the center of the cell, the red gold chains glowing softly around his wrists.
Then we die.
He placed his hand on the door release.
And you die a prisoner who never learned what it meant to be free.
Valor was silent for a long moment. Go then, Warden. I will take the armory, but do not think this makes us allies. It makes us prisoners of the same clock. Elias opened the door. The corridor beyond was dark, lit only by flickering emergency strips along the floor. The smell of stale water and rot hung heavy in the air.
It has to be enough.
He stepped out into the hall. He did not look back at Ash Cell 13. He could not afford to. Every second spent staring at the Demon King was a second lost to the rising tide outside. He pulled his keyring from his pocket, the brass keys clinking softly in the silence. They felt heavy now, weighted with the responsibility of lives he had just bargained away. Bailiff 9 stood at the end of the corridor, leaning against the wall. The man looked pale, his eyes wide and darting. He held a rifle loosely in one hand, as if unsure whether to use it or drop it.
Warden,
Bailiff 9 said,
the lights are failing. The pumps. They stopped an hour ago. The water is already at the second-tier grate.
Elias walked toward him, his footsteps echoing loudly in the narrow space.
How many guards do you have who haven't fled or drunk themselves into a stupor?
Bailiff 9 shook his head.
Take them.
He stopped in front of Bailiff 9 and grabbed the man's shoulder.
We need people who can keep order, not just shoot things. Medics keep morale alive. Morale keeps lines holding.
And if the inmates break out?
Bailiff 9 asked. He looked up at Elias, his eyes pleading for a solution that didn't exist.
What do we do? We have no weapons left. The armory is open.
He released Bailiff 9 and pointed back toward Ash Cell 13.
Valor Ashblind has taken it. He is securing the perimeter. You will report to him. Obey his orders as if they came from me.
Bailiff 9 stared at Elias.
The Demon King? Warden. He burned 3 city blocks in the last war. He killed thousands. He is my prisoner.
His voice was flat, devoid of emotion.
And right now,
the freezing black water slapped against Elias's cheek as he pushed himself up from the floor of the Rustkey office. Alarms shrieked through level 97, a metallic wail that vibrated in his teeth. He gasped for air, wiping slime from his eyes, and looked toward Bailiff 9, who stood frozen by the heavy oak desk. Bailiff 9 trembled. The upper exits are locked, Warden. Imperial order. Containment collapse is imminent. Elias gripped the cracked brass keyring in his hand. If they sealed us in here, then this is not an evacuation problem. It is a murder scene. He dragged himself up, his legs stiff from days of unconsciousness and the chill of the rising tide.
Take me to Ash Cell 13.
His voice cutting through the alarm's drone.
Open the office armory on the way.
Sir, the Demon King. He is under my sentence now. Move. They left the drowning office behind, descending into the dark corridors of level 97. The air grew heavier, thick with the scent of ozone and old blood. When they reached Ash Cell 13, Elias found Valor Ashblind chained upright in the chamber scorched by old hellfire. The Demon King's eyes were milky white, blind to the world but sharp to intent. Vyler tilted his head.
Another disposable royal clerk. You smell of fear and ink, little warden. I smell of justice.
Stepping into the cell, he pulled the ledger of unfinished sentences from his coat. You were imprisoned after accepting a royal ceasefire. The Empire broke its own oath to seize your territory. Valor laughed, a dry, rattling sound.
And you think I care for their oaths? I was chained because they feared my power, not their guilt. I can offer a different kind of sentence.
Holding up the ledger, it glowed with faint red-gold light.
Partial release in exchange for defending level 97 for 72 hours. The system offers me this contract. I accept terms that prevent you from harming uninvolved civilians.
Valor's face hardened. You would bind a king with paper, with promises. The Demon King was silent for a long moment. Then, the chains binding him shifted. The iron links hissed and turned to red-gold oathlight. Valor straightened, the tension leaving his shoulders.
72 hours.
If you fail, Warden, I will eat your soul myself. Deal.
He turned to leave, but the alarms changed pitch, shifting from a warning to a frantic pulse. A notification flashed in his vision. Contamination detected. He needed intelligence. He needed eyes in the dark where he couldn't go. He left Valor in the newly formed pact and headed toward the lower levels, specifically towards Salt Cell 81. The corridors were slick with condensation and fear. Elias moved quickly, his mind racing through strategies. He stopped at Salt Cell 81. Inside sat Nera Quill, the red thread. She leaned against the cold stone wall, idly tracing patterns on the floor with a sharpened piece of bone. She looked up as Elias approached, her eyes sharp and assessing.
Warden Venn.
Her voice dry.
Come to execute me, or just to gloat? I came to offer you a job.
He leaned against the bars, keeping his distance. Nera raised an eyebrow. A job? In a prison that's about to flood? I don't think I'm looking for employment.
You're right. You are dead either way. Unless you help me find who is poisoning the food vault. The food vault. The remaining guards are barricaded in there,
Lowering his voice.
preparing to steal the last rations. I suspect they are poisoning the stores to make an inmate riot look inevitable, to cover their theft with chaos.
Nera snorted.
Because I can offer you a privilege,
He pulled out the ledger again. It hummed softly in his hand.
a temporary weapon release. Whenever a named Blackgate official is proven to have committed murder, You will be allowed to draw steel.
Nera stared at him, then burst into laughter. She leaned forward, grinning viciously. You think I want to kill officials? They are all corrupt. That privilege is useless unless I investigate, Elias finished. And I intend to prove it, not just punish blindly. I will give you the evidence before the weapon. Nera's laughter died. She studied his face, searching for deception. You're serious.
I have no time for games, Nera. Level 97 is sinking. The guards are thieves. Help me expose them, and you get your chance at revenge with proof.
Nera sighed, dropping.
Then you are either a fool or a liar.
Her voice flat. She stopped tracing the bone pattern on the floor and looked up at Elias through the bars,
I am neither.
tapping the cover of the ledger against his palm.
I am a man who has just secured a demon king's loyalty. I do not lie about leverage.
Nera pushed herself off the wall, the movement sharp and fluid despite her confinement.
Leverage implies I have a choice. I am in Salt Cell 81. The air smells of brine and rot. My only choices are starvation or suicide. Why should I trust a clerk who just chained up a monster to save his own skin? Because the guards are not waiting for the flood.
He leaned closer, pressing his forehead against the cold iron bars.
They are preparing for a riot. If you help me find the poison in the grain, you get more than revenge. You get an alibi. When the chaos starts, you will be seen by my eyes, not as an inmate, but as an asset. Do you understand what that means?
Nera's eyes narrowed. An asset can be discarded when the job is done. Only if I say so, Elias countered.
And right now, I am the only one left who can speak for this level. Show me the vault.
She turned away, walking toward the corner where her meager belongings lay.
If I am to die for your investigation, Warden, I want to see the source before I go. You are coming with me. I am in a cell.
Nera snapped, spinning back around.
Unless you have a key that opens my sentence, I am not going anywhere.
Elias looked down at his hand. The brass key ring was heavy, but it was meant for armories and gates, not for breaking the seals of high-security political prisoners. He pulled the ledger open again. The pages fluttered, searching for a connection. He focused on Nera's name, on the crime she had committed, assassinating a royal minister. But there was another clause. Nera watched him, her expression unreadable.
I am negotiating terms.
He pointed to a specific line in the ledger.
I can grant you temporary freedom, 30 minutes. Enough to enter the vault, find the poison, and return. If you do not return within 30 minutes, your sentence resets to permanent execution. Do you accept?
Nera laughed, a harsh, barking sound.
You hold a gun to my head and ask if I like the trigger pull. Yes, I accept, but make it quick. The damp here eats through bone faster than I care for.
Elias pressed his palm against the bars. The ledger burned hot in his hand. A lock clicked deep within the stone, a sound like a dying heart stopping. The bars slid open with a grinding screech. Nera stepped out into the corridor, stretching her arms as if waking from a long sleep. She rolled her shoulders and looked at Elias. Lead on, Warden. Try not to get us drowned before I finish my job. They moved together through the slick corridors of level 97. The water had risen higher now, lapping at the ankles of the statues lining the hallways. Their footsteps echoed loudly, a rhythm of impending doom. Elias led Nera toward the service lifts, keeping to the shadows. He needed to avoid patrols. If Deputy Warden Hask knew he was active, he would send more guards.
Do you know who is in charge of the vault?
Nera asked as they approached the heavy steel doors of the lift shaft. She didn't look at him. She was scanning the ceiling for traps.
Deputy Warden Hask, he manages the supply chain. Nera Quill knew a man named Hask years ago.
Her tone casual but sharp.
He was an auditor in the Imperial Ministry. He had a habit of skimming from the coffers and blaming it on inflation. He never got caught because he paid off the judges with his own money.
Elias froze, his hand hovering over the lift call button. And you are telling me this because...
Because if he is here, using poison to create chaos, he isn't just stealing food. He is testing the waters for a takeover.
She stopped and turned to face him.
You think this is about survival? It is about control? Hask wants level 97 to fall so he can emerge from the rubble with the remaining supplies and negotiate with whoever comes next. The Empire, or the demons, or whatever crawls out of the deep. That fits. He needs a riot to justify locking down the level permanently, to purge the unreliable inmates and keep the loyal guards.
And you are walking into his trap with your eyes wide open.
She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes.
Brave. Stupid, but brave.
Elias hit the call button. The lift arrived instantly. The doors hissed shut, sealing them in a box of polished steel and stale air. The descent was smooth, silent, and terrifying. Elias watched the digital display above the door tick downward, 96, 95, 94. Each number was a layer of history buried beneath their feet, each floor holding worse things than the last. Nera stood perfectly still, her hands clasped behind her back. "You are trembling," she observed. Elias forced his hand to stop shaking. He kept his eyes on the numbers. "I am cold." Nera shifted her weight, her boots clicking softly against the metal floor.
Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Confidence kills in places like this. The guards will be expecting a riot. They expect us to panic, to run for the lifts, to tear each other apart over scraps of bread.
Which is why they are bored.
Hask thinks he has won. He is probably drinking wine and counting his stolen rations right now. He does not think a prisoner could reach the vault before the water rises. The water is rising faster than the records show. Bailiff 9 reported the intake valves are forced open from above. Someone is accelerating the flood.
Nera's eyes narrowed. Then we have even less time. If the vault is contaminated and the exits are sealed, we are all drowning in our own waste within hours. The lift shuddered to a halt. The doors slid open to reveal the heavy blast doors of the food storage sector. They were welded shut from the outside, but not before the guards had installed a manual override wheel. A small window in the steel was fogged with condensation. Elias approached the door, listening. He heard voices inside, muffled, drunk, and triumphant. The clinking of glass bottles, the sound of laughter that lacked any joy.
Stay here.
Nera stepped forward, blocking his view of the window.
You are an asset.
And assets need eyes. I have eyes.
She pulled a thin, curved blade from her boot, a weapon she had hidden well enough that the cell inspection had missed it. "I have reach, and you have that book. You need to keep it safe, not your head." Before Elias could argue, Nera pressed her ear against the cold steel. She tapped twice on a specific spot in the metal seam. A lock mechanism clicked behind them, and the massive wheel turned with a groan of rusted iron. The door swung inward an inch. Elias pushed it wider. The smell hit him first, rotten grain, stale sweat, and something sweet and chemical that made his eyes water. Sleep glass dust, highly refined poison used to induce coma or death, depending on the dosage. The vault was a cavern of wooden crates stacked waist-high. In the center, 3 guards sat around a makeshift table made from a crate lid. Deputy Warden Hask sat at the head, holding a goblet of wine that looked suspiciously like stolen vintage. His uniform was unbuttoned, his belly pressing against his belt. "Look what the rats dragged in," Hask slurred, not bothering to stand up. He waved a hand dismissively. "Close the door, boys. Let them suffocate if they want." One of the guards reached for a rifle, leaning against a crate. "Sir, the Venn boy thinks he can play God with a ledger? He does not understand the gravity of this place. The Empire has abandoned us. We are on our own now." Elias stepped into the light, his hand resting on the hilt of his sidearm, though he knew it was likely empty or jammed. "You poisoned the grain?" Hask choked on his laugh. He set the goblet down with a clatter. "Poisoned? We are enhancing it, giving the rats a little sleep so they do not wake up when we take what is ours." Nera moved like smoke. She was inside the circle of guards before the nearest one could raise his rifle. Her blade flashed, severing the strap of the guard's ammunition belt. He gasped, dropping to his knees. The second guard tried to swing his stock at Nera's head, but she ducked under the arc and kicked his knee backward with a sickening crunch. He didn't know why he said it. Perhaps because the violence was escalating too fast, or perhaps because he needed them alive for the ledger. "Nera, stop. I need them to confess." Nera froze, her blade inches from Hask's throat. She looked back at Elias, her eyes wild.
He is going to kill us all, Elias. He has already killed half of level 97 by neglecting the seals. Why do you care about his words? Because I need proof.
His voice steady despite his racing heart.
If I arrest him based on your word, it looks like a prisoner mutiny. If I arrest him based on the evidence, it looks like justice. And if it looks like justice, the other guards will surrender. They will follow the law.
Hask snorted. "Justice? There is no law here, boy. Only strength. You are weak. Your predecessor was weak. That Hask spat on the floor, the sound echoing loudly in the confined space. Justice is a luxury for the living. We are merely surviving. Elias stepped closer, his boots splashing in the puddle of contaminated water pooling around the crate. He held up the ledger, its pages glowing with a faint, ominous light. The ledger does not care about survival, it cares about contracts, and right now, you are in violation of every clause binding this facility to Imperial law. Hask laughed, a harsh, grating sound. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. You think your little book can save us? It is paper and ink. I have the weapons, I have the food. You have nothing but delusions of grandeur. Nera did not lower her blade. She pressed it closer to Hask's neck, drawing a thin line of blood. He has me, she said coldly, and he has you on record for treason. Do not test my patience, Auditor. Hask's eyes flickered toward the blade, then back to Elias. For a moment, fear crossed his face, but it was quickly replaced by defiance. Treason? I am securing our resources. Without the food, these monsters will tear us apart within an hour. I am making hard choices, boy. Wens, you are too naive to understand. Elias opened the ledger to a fresh page. The ink swirled, forming words in real time. You poisoned the grain with sleepglass dust. You intended to frame an inmate riot as the cause of death, allowing you to seize control of the vault and flee when the water finally took the rest. That is not hard choice. That is murder. Hask stood up abruptly, knocking his chair over. Give me that book! He lunged toward Elias, but Nera was faster. She stepped sideways, slashing at his arm. Hask yelped, stumbling back into the crates behind him. Several boxes toppled, spilling dark, oily grain across the floor.
Stay back.
Fumbling for a pistol tucked into his belt.
I will shoot you both. I swear it.
Elias did not flinch. He watched the ink in the ledger pulse red, a clear indicator of imminent threat.
You cannot shoot without triggering the facility's lockdown protocol. The moment your weapon detects a guard in hostile fire mode, the doors seal permanently. There will be no escape for you, only death in this room.
Hask froze, his hand hovering over the gun. He looked at the pistol, then at Elias, then at the ledger. Sweat beaded on his forehead. You are bluffing, he whispered.
That is impossible. The system is older than your empire, and it does not tolerate betrayal.
Nera lowered her blade slightly, though she kept her stance wide and ready. He believes you, she murmured to Elias. Let him believe you. Keep him talking while I check the grain samples. Hask stared at them, his breathing ragged. If I surrender, if I admit my mistakes, will you let me live? Elias closed the ledger with a soft snap. The ledger decides your fate, not me. But if you cooperate, it may offer a sentence less severe than execution. Hask slumped back into his chair, the fight draining out of him. He looked at the spilled grain, then at the wine goblet on the table. It is too late for that, he muttered. The water is rising. We all drown eventually. Elias walked past him, inspecting the crates. He knelt down, scooping up a handful of the contaminated grain. It felt heavy, unnatural. Then we make sure it is not in vain, he said. He turned to Nera. Can you carry this sample out? Nera sheathed her blade and took the grain from his hand.
Where do you want me to take it? To Princess Morel? If anyone can prove the Empire's complicity in this sabotage, it is her, and if she is truly innocent of the charges against her, she may be our only path to exposing Hask publicly.
Hask let out a bitter laugh from his chair. You are sending the assassin to the traitor princess. You really are delusional. Elias ignored him, already moving toward the door. He needed to secure the level before the water rose further, and he needed to ensure that the truth survived even if he did not. Elias Venn woke face down, in freezing black water inside the Rusky office, while alarms rang through level 97. He dragged himself up from the silt-choked floor, gasping as the stale air filled his lungs, and found the rusted railing of the command desk slick beneath his palms. Bailiff 9 stood motionless by the door, its hydraulic joints whining in a rhythm that matched the dying pulse of the facility's lights. The containment seal on the upper shafts is absolute, Bailiff 9 reported, its voice grinding like stone against stone. Imperial order received and executed. All exit vectors are closed. Elias pulled himself onto the desk, water dripping from his tunic onto the cracked brass keyring at his belt. He looked out through the reinforced glass of the rust key office windows, seeing only the swirling darkness of the flooded corridor below. The alarms were not a warning. They were a countdown.
If they sealed us in here,
Gripping the keys until the metal bit into his skin,
then this is not an evacuation problem. It is a murder scene.
Bailiff 9 turned its head toward him with a metallic click. The previous warden has disappeared. The food vault is compromised. Soul-corroding water floods. Level 97 in 11 days. Elias didn't have time to process the weight of that statement. His mind, trained by years of strategy games and legal briefs, immediately began sorting the chaos into variables. He was alone, trapped in a tomb, with 3 functioning cells and a golem that followed instructions but not orders. He needed leverage. He needed control.
Take me to Ash Cell 13.
Pointing a trembling finger toward the lift shaft at the back of the room, and open the armory first. Bailiff 9 did not move.
The armory requires warden-level biometric clearance. You do not have it, Elias Venn. I am the warden.
Though his voice lacked the authority he wished it held, he felt small, hollowed out by the cold and the fear that was just beginning to settle in his chest. But then, a strange clarity washed over him. He looked down at his hands, half submerged in the oily water pooling around the desk. He could feel the prison beneath him not as stone and steel but as a network of binding laws. The sovereign system hummed in his blood, invisible to everyone else but undeniable to him.
You are correct.
His voice steadying.
But I have access to something the previous warden did not.
He placed his palm flat against the wet surface of the ledger of unfinished sentences, which lay open on the desk beside a shattered monitor. The leather cover was warm. As he touched it, lines of text ignited in gold light, scrolling faster than he could read. He wasn't just reading records, he was inspecting them. He saw the names, the crimes, and the hidden clauses that bound them, and he saw something wrong. 3 inmates scheduled for execution had no lawful conviction attached to their names. The system flagged them as unsentenced, but they were still listed as active threats. That discrepancy was a crack in the foundation of Blackgate Deep, a crack he could pry open.
Bailiff,
Standing up on the shaky desk,
bypass the biometric lock. Use my voice print and the ledger's authority. Open the armory.
the golem's eyes flashed red. The heavy iron door to the side office groaned, rust flakes cascading down as it swung inward. Inside, racks of old rifles and a single heavy plasma caster waited in the dust. Elias grabbed the caster, checking the charge. It was at 40%. Barely enough to kill a man, let alone a demon king. "Follow me," he said to Bailiff 9. "We have 72 hours before the chains hold. We need to break them first." They moved through the flooded corridors, water rising to their knees. The darkness was absolute save for the faint glow of emergency strips along the floor. Elias kept his grip on the plasma caster, his heart hammering against his ribs. He wasn't a soldier. He was a public defender who had spent his life arguing for people who couldn't afford one. Now, he was the only thing standing between these prisoners and a grave that wasn't theirs to fill. Ash Cell 13 was located at the end of Sector C, a dead-end corridor where the walls were scorched black by old hellfire. The heat radiating from the cell door was intense, melting the frost on the floor. Elias stopped in front of the heavy bars, breathing hard. Inside, a figure sat chained upright, naked save for the bindings that dug into his flesh. Elias Venn, the figure said, his voice rough but amused.
The youngest warden Blackgate has ever produced. I expected someone taller.
Elias stepped forward, raising the plasma caster slightly, and I expected a monster who cared about etiquette. Valor Ashblind. Valor lifted his head. His eyes were not human. They were pits of swirling embers.
Monster? I am a prisoner. You are a jailer. We are both bound by laws you do not understand. I understand that your name is on the ledger without a crime.
Tapping the book he had carried from the office.
I understand that the Empire broke an oath to put you here. And I understand that if we die in this level, that truth dies with us.
Valor stared at him for a long moment. Then he laughed, a dry, cracking sound. Truth? You think the truth matters? Valor's laughter died in his throat, replaced by a low growl that vibrated through the scorched floorboards. He shifted his weight, the chains clinking with a heavy metallic ring.
You think I care about your moral high ground? I have sat in this chair for 3 centuries. I have watched empires rise and rot while I remain static. Your truth is irrelevant to my survival. Your survival is irrelevant to mine.
Elias shot back, keeping the plasma caster leveled at Valor's chest. We are on a countdown clock. 11 days, maybe less. If you stay chained there, we both drown. If I leave you here, the containment seals hold, and Blackgate Deep becomes a tomb for 10,000 souls. Valor tilted his head, embers swirling in his eyes. And what do you propose, Warden Venn? That we hold hands and sing hymns to the stars? You have no power here. The system is dormant, your keys are rusted, your golem is a glorified toaster with delusions of grandeur. Bailiff 9 stepped forward, its hydraulic legs hissing as it moved past Elias. Correction. I am operating at 42% capacity, and the Warden has access to the ledger. Valor snorted. A book, really? Elias slammed the ledger of unfinished sentences onto a dry patch of the cell door's outer wall, right between them. The leather cover glowed with a faint amber light. He tapped the page where Vyler's name sat in black ink, devoid of any conviction clause.
I see it now.
His voice tight.
Hidden clause, royal ceasefire violation. Emperor Orsic broke the pact to seize your territory. You're not here for your crimes. You're here because you were inconvenient.
Valor went still. The embers in his eyes flared bright white, then dimmed back to a wary orange. He looked from the ledger to Elias's face, his expression shifting from mockery to something sharper, more calculating.
Orsic, the architect of silence. He's sacrificing this level.
Elias continued, the pieces clicking into place with terrifying clarity. He's burning the records. He's drowning the witnesses. You're just one witness. There are others. Nera in Salt Cell 81. Morel in Glass Cell 44. They're all being erased. Valor leaned forward as far as the chains allowed, straining against the iron cuffs.
If you speak of the princess behind glass, you tread on imperial treason. I don't care about treason.
Dropping the weapon slightly but not lowering his guard.
I care about efficiency. You have power, Valor. Old hellfire, ancient oaths, if we can unlock that, we can fight back. We can stop the flood.
Freedom is not a commodity I trade for promises from a boy who just woke up in a puddle. No contract. No partial release. Just an empty promise of justice at the end of a dead-end road.
Elias felt a surge of frustration, hot and sharp. He wanted to scream. He wanted to beg. Instead, he reached out and touched the red-gold chain that bound Valor's left wrist. It was cold, heavy, and hummed with dormant magic.
I can't free you, not yet. But I can bind you to something else. A defense contract. You defend level 97 for 72 hours. In exchange, I keep your name in the ledger public. I ensure that when this is over, your sentence is reviewed by a court that exists outside Orsic's reach.
Valor stared at him. The alarms in the corridor continued their relentless wail, a rhythmic pulsing of red light reflecting off the wet walls.
And if I refuse? Then you stay here, and you drown. Along with everyone else who didn't deserve it.
Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Then, slowly, Valor smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator recognizing another apex creature in the dark.
A trial.
Not forgiveness. A public trial, before gods or monsters or anyone who can hear us scream. Agreed.
The chain around Valor's wrist glowed, shifting from dull iron to a brilliant, burning red gold. The light surged up Valor's arm, illuminating the scars on his skin, before fading into his flesh. Valor took a deep breath, the air hissing through his teeth.
Then we have an accord.
But do not mistake this for friendship, Warden. If you betray me, I will tear out your throat with my bare hands. If you survive that long, I might let you try.
Though his hands were shaking, he pulled the ledger back and tucked it into his belt. We need to move. Glass Cell 44 is next. The deputy warden mentioned a prisoner of higher value. Valor flexed his newly freed hand, testing the strength of the new bond.
The princess, Morel Ardent. She is difficult. She does not bargain with power. She bargains with truth. Good.
Turning toward the corridor.
I have plenty of that to go around.
They moved out of Ash Cell 13, Valor walking with a limp but an upright posture. His Hell Valor's heavy boots splashed through the rising slush as Elias led the way towards Sector G, the path to Glass Cell 44, winding through a maze of corroded pipes and flickering hazard lights. The air grew colder, smelling of ozone and stale blood. Elias kept his plasma caster raised, his knuckles white around the grip, while Bailiff 9 lumbed behind them, its rusted joints whining with every step.
We are moving too slowly.
His voice echoing off the wet tiles.
The water is rising in the lower ducts. I can hear it. Then you help me find a faster way.
He stopped at a junction where 3 corridors branched into darkness. The deputy mentioned sealed service tunnels. Maps. Valor spat onto the floor, the saliva hissing as it hit a spark of static from the ceiling.
Orsic burned the master maps. He trusts no one to know the shortcuts but himself and his executioners. Then we guess.
He pointed to the left corridor, which was choked with debris.
This way is blocked.
He pointed to the right, which seemed slightly clearer.
This one is quieter. Quieter means fewer guards or fewer patrols. Orsic leaves the loud halls for show and uses the quiet ones for secrets. You reason like a clerk.
Not a strategist. I argue cases in courtrooms full of liars. I know how they hide things. They don't hide them in plain sight. They hide them where no one wants to look. Orsic doesn't want anyone to know where the princess is kept, because it looks like an execution, not a containment.
Bailiff 9 turned its head, optical sensors focusing on Elias.
Analysis. Probability of correct path selection based on quietness heuristic is 34%. Recommended action, check the central shaft. The central shaft is exposed.
If Orsic's loyalists are still active, we will be pinned down before we take 2 steps. We don't have time for safe paths.
He started walking toward the center corridor, the water swirling around his ankles.
Nera might be there. And Morel. If she is being held in isolation, it's because Orsic fears her influence more than her power. She's alone, not guarded.
And if you are wrong?
Valor asked, falling into step beside him.
Then I die, and everyone else drowns with me.
They reached the central shaft, a wide elevator well that had been sealed off decades ago by a massive iron grate. But the gate was not locked. It was melted, the metal dripping like wax down the sides. Elias peered into the darkness below. The smell of rot hit him first, followed by the faint hum of electrical current.
Down.
He climbed onto the edge of the grate and dropped into the shaft, landing in a crouch on a metal walkway 15 feet down. Valor followed, his descent silent despite his size. Bailiff 9 clanked down last, its impact shaking loose dust from the ceiling. The walkway led to a solitary door marked with the number 44 in faded white paint. The glass within was thick and reinforced, etched with runes of suppression. Elias approached it slowly, raising the plasma caster again. He knocked on the metal frame 3 times. No answer.
Open up.
His voice dropping an octave.
Princess, we know where you are.
The door slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Inside, the cell was pristine, untouched by the decay of the rest of level 97. A small cot, a desk, and a single chair were arranged neatly in the center. Standing by the window that looked out into the flooded corridor was Morelli Ardent. She wore a simple gray tunic, her dark hair tied back in a severe knot. Her posture was rigid, her hands clasped behind her back.
You are late.
Not turning around.
By 4 hours and 12 minutes.
Elias froze. What? Morel turned to face them. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and devoid of fear. She looked at Elias, then at Valor, then at the rusted golem.
I calculated your arrival time based on the depth of the cell, the condition of the lift, and the typical response time of a corrupt Warden-class AI. You are faster than I expected. Or desperate. We're here to get you out.
Lowering the weapon slightly.
Orsic is sacrificing this level. We need to move.
Orsic is dead.
His body was recovered from the surface 3 days ago. His death was a signal. The purge has already begun upstairs. This level is just the cleanup crew.
Elias felt a chill run down his spine.
Then why are you still here? Why not escape? Because the locks on my cell are tied to my heartbeat.
She tapped her chest.
Biometric seal. If I die, the cell explodes. If I leave without authorization, it explodes. I am a prisoner in more ways than one.
Valor stepped forward, his chains rattling. Then we break the lock. It is not a mechanical lock, Morel corrected him. She looked at Elias. You are the warden. You have the ledger. Read my file. Elias pulled the ledger from his belt and flipped to the page marked Morel Ardent. Elias held the heavy book open, his fingers trembling as they traced the ink. The paper was warm, pulsing with a faint, sickly rhythm that matched the alarms above. He expected treason. He expected murder. He expected the standard litany of crimes committed by the Empire's most privileged daughter. Instead, the page was blank.
It is empty.
He looked up at Mirelle.
Your file. It is completely empty.
Mirelle walked toward him, her bare feet silent on the glass floor. She stopped inches from his face, forcing him to look down into eyes that were older than his own. That is not an error, Warden. That is the sentence. I was erased before my crime could be defined. Orsic did not put me here to punish me. He put me here to keep me from testifying. His voice was low, a growl that vibrated in Elias's chest.
To the succession.
She turned to look at the sealed door behind her.
My brother is dead. The crown is vacant. Orsic did not seize power. He dissolved it. He is burning the royal line and everyone who remembers it. This level is not a prison. It is a graveyard for witnesses.
Elias closed the ledger slowly. The weight of the book felt different now, heavier, more significant.
If you are a witness, why did Orsic bring you down here? Why not just kill you? Because death makes martyrs.
She gestured to the glass walls.
Confinement makes ghosts. I am alive so that my existence proves the regime is unstable. But if the water rises, if the soul corrosion takes this level, then my proof dies with me. And Orsic wins.
Elias looked at Bailiff 9. The golem's optical sensors whirred as they focused on Mirelle.
Analysis. Threat level of prisoner Ardent is critical. Recommendation. Immediate termination. Shut up, bailiff.
He looked back at Mirelle.
You want out. I can give you that. But a contract needs terms. I need something from you.
Mirelle laughed.
Then help me manage it.
He opened the ledger again, holding it up for her to see.
I have 72 hours before the levees break. I have 3 inmates who might actually help me. I have a golem that follows orders. And I have you. You know the tunnels. You know Orsic's mind. Give me the maps of the service tunnels. Show me how to stop the floodgates.
And in return?
She leaned against the wall, crossing her arms.
What do you offer a princess who has lost her crown? Your pity? My word, I will place your testimony in the ledger of unfinished sentences. It is bound by magic older than Orsic. Once it is written there, no one can erase it. Not him, not me, not even death. Your truth survives.
Mirelle studied him for a long moment. The red emergency lights reflected in her dark eyes.
And if I trust you, and the ledger is a lie? If you are just another liar with keys, then kill me.
He didn't flinch.
But while I am alive, I will hold this line.
Mirelle pushed off the wall. She walked to her desk and picked up a slender key made of black glass. She held it out. The tunnels are behind the ventilation shaft in the corner. The map is etched into the metal beneath your feet. Read it carefully. If you take the wrong path, the water will find you. Elias took the key. It was cold, colder than ice.
Thank you. Do not thank me.
She turned away, looking out into the corridor.
I am doing this for myself. If I survive, I will burn Orsic's empire to the ground. Do not get in my way. We have no choice.
He stepped forward, placing a hand on Elias's shoulder.
She is right. The water is rising faster than before. Listen.
Elias listened. Then a flash of orange light illuminated the corridor through the glass.
Demolition.
Mirelle's face went pale.
No, that is not an explosion. That is a detonation charge. They are breaching the upper levels.
Elias checked the ledger. The page for Mirelle Ardent was no longer blank. Ink had begun to form, swirling into letters as if written by an invisible hand. High-value inmate identified, Mirelle Ardent, royal classification, expunged air, external demolition charge detected.
They aren't just flooding the level.
His voice tight.
They are collapsing it.
Elias Venn gasped as the freezing black water filled his lungs, the shock of immersion dragging him from unconsciousness into a waking nightmare. The rusty office submerged around him, its brass fixtures groaning under the pressure of level 97's containment failure. He clawed at the desk, fingers scraping against wood and glass, before the system's chime echoed through his skull, clear and indifferent to the drowning panic. Warden authority recognized. Elias Venn. Emergency directive. Prevent level 97 containment failure. He broke the surface, coughing up brine, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. The alarms were not just sounds, they were physical vibrations rattling his teeth. Bailiff 9 stood knee-deep in the rising tide, his uniform clinging to his frame, eyes wide with terror.
The upper exits are locked.
Bailiff 9 shouted over the klaxon, water dripping from his cap.
Imperial order. No one comes out, no one goes up. Then we do not go up.
His voice raspy but steady. He gripped the cracked brass keyring in his hand, the metal cold and heavy, anchoring him to the present. If they sealed us in here, then this is not an evacuation problem. It is a murder scene. Bailiff 9 hesitated, looking toward the darkened corridor where the lights flickered and died.
The warden. He just vanished, Elias. Who are we obeying? You are obeying the law.
Wading toward the armory locker.
And the law is currently being broken by whoever ordered this collapse.
He pried the lock open with the keyring, the mechanism shrieking in protest. Inside lay 3 shotguns and a stack of ammunition, preserved behind glass that now stood unbroken. He grabbed one, checking the chamber, then tossed a box to Bailiff 9.
Take me to Ash Cell 13.
Water sluicing off his shoulders.
The previous warden left us with nothing but a ledger and a lie. I intend to correct both.
Bailiff 9 nodded, though his hands trembled as he loaded the shotgun.
Ash Cell 13 is in the deepest sector. The pressure down there, it cracks bone. Then we'll bring earplugs.
He waded deeper into the office, the darkness pressing in. He knew what awaited him. He had read the ledger of unfinished sentences before the floodwaters rose, and he knew 3 names were listed without conviction: Vyler Ashblind, Nera Quill, and Princess Morella Ardent. But only one was a threat that could justify a level collapse. The corridor to Level 97's core was a tunnel of rusted steel and dripping pipes. Elias moved with purpose, his legs burning from the cold. The system flashed again, projecting data into his vision despite the gloom. Inmate Vyler Ashblind, sentence record corrupted, hidden clause detected, the Crown owes this prisoner a trial.
The Crown owes him?
Bailiff 9 muttered, walking beside Elias.
That's heresy. The Crown owes no debts to monsters. The Crown owes everything it takes.
He stopped at the gate of Ash Cell 13. The door was barred with iron chains thicker than his thigh. Beyond the bars, a figure sat upright on a stone bench, blindfolded but aware. Vyler Ashblind opened his eyes as Elias approached. They were not human. They swirled with ember light and ancient malice. Vyler smiled, a slow stretching of lips that revealed too many teeth. Another clerk. Vyler rasped, his voice echoing off the wet walls.
Come to count my seconds before the water takes me? Or did you come to beg? I came to inspect your sentence.
He held up the ledger, the pages glowing faintly with suppressed magic, and to offer you a choice. Vyler tilted his head.
A choice? For a demon king? I have had choices before, little warden. They always ended in fire. This one ends in freedom.
He pressed the ledger against the chains. The system interface flared, red gold light spilling from the book's pages. Contract offer available. Limited release in exchange for service. Vyler recoiled slightly as the light touched his skin.
What price? My soul? Your life? 72 hours, defend this level, stop the collapse. In return, I grant you partial release, not forgiveness. A trial, a trial.
Vyler tasted the words.
The Crown would never allow it. The Crown is busy breaking oaths. I am making new ones.
Vyler laughed, a dry, cracking sound.
You are weak, Warden. You stand in water while I sit in fire. You think your ledger can stop the tide? Watch me.
Suddenly the alarms changed pitch. A siren screamed, harsh and urgent. Bailiff 9 spun around, shotgun raised. Sir, the cells. They're opening. Elias looked down the corridor. From the shadows of the other wings, figures emerged. Some were familiar inmates. Others wore the uniforms of guards. But their movements were wrong, jerky, predatory. Hask, a violent inmate known for slaughtering hostages, led the charge, a forged release seal gleaming on his belt.
He's forcing Vyler's hand.
Elias realized.
He wants Vyler.
Vyler's hand snapped up, palm facing the darkness where Hask stood. The Demon King did not rise. He merely exhaled, and the air in the corridor dropped 20 degrees. Frost cracked along the wet floorboards as hellfire gathered in Vyler's clenched fist, a sphere of black and violet flame that cast no light but consumed all shadow.
Hask.
His voice devoid of heat but full of weight.
You wear the skin of a man who owes me a debt. You do not have the right to stand in my threshold.
But it was a nervous sound, wet and choking. He raised a jagged dagger made of fused bone.
The Warden's orders are null. The seal is imperial. I am free to kill. The seal is forged.
Stepping forward, his boots splashing through the shallow tide that now lapped at the cell door, He held the ledger open with one hand and a flare pistol in the other. "Check your belt, Hask. Look at the engraving." Hask glanced down. The red gold light from Vaylor's palm caught the metal on his hip. The imperial crest was wrong, too sharp, too angular, lacking the crown's usual curve. A lie made of tin and hope. "It is valid," Hask shrieked, swinging the dagger toward Vaylor's face.
Burn if you must. I have nothing left to lose. No.
He fired the flare pistol not at Hask, but at the ceiling above the rioting inmates. The magnesium burst erupted with a blinding white roar, illuminating the corridor in stark, unforgiving clarity. In that instant, every face was visible. There were no guards among the attackers, only inmates, and worse among them. Elias recognized the hollow eyes of conscripted children from the lower districts, their faces smeared with grime and terror, their weapons too large for their hands. They are not soldiers. They are hostages. Mirelle Ardent appeared from the shadows of a side corridor, her white uniform stained black with soot, but her posture rigidly perfect. She moved with the grace of someone who had once ruled an empire and knew how to direct traffic during its collapse.
Mirelle, the maintenance room. Now, take every civilian in this sector.
I cannot leave my post.
Though she was already guiding a group of terrified inmates behind a heavy iron bulkhead door, she turned to Elias, her blue eyes sharp as ice picks.
Elias, if you release him, you lose control. If you keep him caged, we drown. Your math is cruel. My math is survival.
He looked at Vaylor. The Demon King was waiting, the hellfire in his palms steady and hungry. "Vaylor, do not burn them, melt their weapons, dismantle their means, leave them alive to confess." Vaylor tilted his head, listening to the heartbeats of the men charging him.
You ask me to spare wolves who wish to eat your sheep. Why? Because killing them makes martyrs, letting them live exposes the lie. The crown wanted us dead. This riot proves they are desperate. Give me their fear, Vaylor. I will give it to the law.
Vaylor smiled, and this time it was not cruel. It was professional. "A trial by combat, then?" "Very well." He opened his hand. The black fire did not strike flesh. It streamed forward like a whip, coiling around Hask's dagger, melting the bone into slag before snapping against the wrists of the charging inmates. There were no screams, only the hiss of metal turning to liquid, and the thud of bodies hitting the floor as their weapons failed them. Hask fell back, clutching his blistered hands. You are a monster. I am a prisoner," Vaylor corrected calmly. He stood up, chains rattling, though he remained behind the cell door. The red gold light from Elias's ledger flared brighter, binding the space between them in a web of visible magic. "And I have work to do." Nera Quill dropped from the ceiling rafters, landing silently between Vaylor and the fallen rioters. She drew a slender needle-like blade, her expression bored, but her eyes scanning for threats that hadn't been neutralized. She looked at Elias, then at Vaylor, then back at Elias,
So,
tapping her blade against her palm.
we have a demon king who won't kill us, a warden who writes checks he can't cash, and a level full of people who want to see the ceiling collapse. Who is in charge?
Elias closed the ledger with a snap that echoed louder than the sirens. "Order is in charge, for now. Non-lethal suppression bonus available." The system chimed in his mind. "Use it, and you may bind the rioters' voices to truth for 1 hour." Elias ignored the prompt for now. He looked at Nera.
Nera, secure the perimeter. No one leaves this sector. Mirelle, fortify the maintenance room. If the water breaches the lower doors, you are our last line.
Mirelle nodded. Already barking orders to the few remaining honest guards, Mirelle did not wait for permission. She turned on her heel, her boots striking the wet stone with a rhythm that sounded like a war drum. "Move," she shouted to the remaining guards, her voice cutting through the haze of magnesium smoke. "Double the barricade. If the water hits the lower intake, we seal it manually. Nera, get me eyes on the upper gantries." Nera Quill was already moving, a shadow detaching itself from the wall. She sprinted past Elias, her blade tucked into her belt, and leaped onto the railing of the maintenance catwalk. "Copy that, Princess. I'll see them before they blink." She paused, looking down at Elias with a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. "Try not to die, Warden. It would be terribly inconvenient to have to write the report myself." Elias turned back to the cell door. Vaylor was watching him, the hellfire in his hand extinguished but the heat still radiating from his skin. The Demon King's blind eyes seemed to focus directly on Elias's face.
You bind them with light, but you have not yet bound me.
Elias gripped the brass keyring until his knuckles turned white.
The contract is active, Veiler. You are bound by your own choice, not my command. Choice is a luxury of the safe.
He took a step forward, the chains clinking heavily. The red-gold glow of the ledger pulsed in time with his heartbeat.
You think I serve you because I wish to? I serve because the alternative is the void, and the void does not care about your morals, Elias Venn, and I do.
He opened the ledger again, flipping to a fresh page. The ink swirled, forming words in real time. So let us speak of the rioters. Hask and his men are dead weight. But the children, Nara reported conscripts from the lower districts, they were drugged, forced. Veiler's head tilted slightly.
You intend to free them? I intend to use them.
The words tasting like ash in his mouth.
The Crown wants a massacre to justify collapsing level 97. If we give them nothing but corpses, they win. If we give them evidence, if we show that the Empire is executing its own citizens under false pretenses, the narrative shifts.
You would weaponize their mercy? That is a cold path, little clerk. He looked down at the rioters writhing on the floor, their weapons melted into useless slag. Nara will take them to Morel. They'll be held in isolation until I can process their sentences. Sentences. Veiler stepped closer, invading Elias's personal space. The heat coming off him was suffocating.
You speak of law while the world burns? You are playing a game you cannot win, Elias. I'm winning.
Though his heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. He forced himself to meet Veiler's gaze. I'm buying time, and time is the only currency that matters right now. Veiler stared at him for a long moment. Then, he reached out and placed a hand on Elias's shoulder. The contact was burning hot, yet Elias did not flinch.
Then buy it wisely, because when the water comes, I will be watching you. And if you fail, I will burn this prison to the bedrock before I let you drown in it.
Elias swallowed hard. Noted. He turned away from the cell, walking back toward the center of the corridor. The alarms were still screaming, but the chaos had stilled into a tense, waiting silence. Bailiff 9 approached cautiously, his shotgun lowered.
Sir,
Bailiff 9 said, his voice trembling.
what are your orders for the prisoners?
Elias looked at the ledger. The text was changing again. New lines were appearing, red and urgent. Warning, a punishment without truth produces a rebellion. Elias traced the line with his finger. It would turn inward.
Bailiff,
His voice steady despite the fear coiling in his gut.
get every guard we have left to the Rusky office armory. We're not just locking doors anymore. We're preparing for a siege. Everyone.
He looked up at the dark ceiling, where the water was beginning to seep through the cracks, dripping like tears from a grieving god. From above, the drip became a pour. The level groaned under the weight of the rising tide. Elias closed the ledger. Only time to act. Morel, the princess, emerged from the haze, her armor slick with condensation and blood. She held a heavy wrench like a scepter, her face grim.
I hear you, Warden. The lower intake is jammed. We need brute force to turn the valve. Take 2 guards.
Stepping over a pool of melting metal.
If the water breaches the gate before we secure the ledger, seal it from the inside. Do not let them drown in the dark.
Morel paused, her eyes narrowing.
And you? What do you plan to do with that book? I'm going to give Hask a trial. Warning, a punishment without truth produces a rebellion.
He turned back to Veiler, who was still chained behind the glowing red-gold barrier. Veiler, the rioters are not just victims. Some are lies. Hask is weaving a tapestry of guilt for us. Help me peel it back. You ask a demon king to play judge? I am no arbiter of mortal law, Warden. I am the end of oaths. You are the key to this level, Elias countered, gripping the ledger tighter, and I am holding the pen. You want to know who betrayed you? Look at the ones they sent to kill us. They wore our uniforms. They spoke with our voices, but their sentences are blank. The heat radiating from him spiked, singeing the air around Elias, blank.
Their records are forged.
Pulling the ledger open, the pages flapped violently in the damp wind. Hask used imperial seals to release them, but the system rejected the authorization. He is using dead men's names to justify our execution. If we kill them in revenge, we prove his point. We become monsters. If we expose them, we become a problem. Valor laughed, a sound like grinding stones.
You think truth matters to an empire that drowns its own? They do not care for justice, they care for silence. Then let's make enough noise they can't ignore it.
He turned to the remaining guards who were hovering uncertainly in the corridor.
Bailiff 9, bring me every active monitor in the Rusky office. I need to see the release logs, then we go back manually.
He pointed to the far end of the corridor, where the floodgates were beginning to groan under the pressure of the rising water.
We walk into the server room. We pull the logs ourselves. That is suicide.
It's not suicide if we bring proof out with us.
He looked at Nera, who was perched on a high gantry above them.
Nera, can you get to the junction box at the server entrance?
The assassin peered down, her face masked by shadows and rain.
It's a suicide run either way, Warden. The flood is fast, but I can make it quiet. Good.
He looked back at Valor.
Stay here, hold the line. If anyone tries to take you while I'm gone, burn them to ash, but do not let them break the cell. This barrier is my only leverage.
Valor smiled, a terrifying baring of teeth. I will burn them all, Elias. For you, perhaps, or for myself. It matters little which. Elias turned and ran toward the dark mouth of the corridor, the cold water soaking his boots instantly. The ledger was heavy in his hands, its pages glowing with a faint, steady light that cut through the gloom. Only time to fight for the truth. Cold. It was not merely a temperature, it was a weight, pressing against Elias Venn's face, forcing the air from his lungs in ragged, shuddering gasps. He pushed himself up from the floor of the Rustky office, his hands slipping on slick black stone that seemed to absorb the light rather than reflect it. The water around him was freezing, biting through his thin warden's coat with a vicious personal malice. Alarms were screaming in the distance, a mechanical shriek that vibrated through the water and into his bones, signaling that level 97 was dying. Bailiff 9 stood knee-deep in the rising tide, his uniform soaked, his face pale with terror. Warden Venn. The bailiff stammered, his voice cracking over the din of the alarms. The upper exits are sealed. Imperial orders. We cannot leave. Elias Venn wiped water from his eyes and looked at the bailiff with cold, clear disdain. He gripped the cracked brass keyring in his hand, the metal biting into his palm. If they sealed us in here, then this is not an evacuation problem. It is a murder scene. Open the office armory, Bailiff 9, and take me to Ash Cell 13. Bailiff 9 hesitated, looking at the dark water.
The cell blocks are compromised, Warden. The corrosion do it.
His voice steady despite the shivering that ran through him.
Or we all drown as criminals when the water rises.
The ascent was a climb through hell. Ash Cell 13 lay deep in the bowels of Blackgate Deep, a place where the air tasted of sulfur and old blood. When Elias Venn arrived, the heat was already oppressive, scorching against his wet skin. The chamber doors were scorched black, twisted by flames that had died centuries ago but still held their memory in the stone. Inside, chained upright in a cage of iron bars that glowed with faint, dying embers, stood Valor Ashblind. The Demon King was blind, his eyes covered by strips of dark cloth that seemed woven from shadow itself. He did not move as Elias approached, but he tilted his head, listening to the wet slap of Elias's boots on the stone floor. Valor Ashblind smiled, a sharp, predatory expression that did not reach his hidden eyes.
Another royal clerk,
His voice like grinding stones.
here to deliver another false promise. Or perhaps you have come to finish what the crown started.
Elias Venn stopped before the bars. He did not flinch at the heat radiating from the demon. I have come to read your sentence. Valor Ashblind laughed, a dry, rasping sound. You think paper matters here. You think chains matter. I am Valor Ashblind, and I have broken empires with less effort than it takes to snap a twig. Your keys are useless, little warden. Elias Venn ignored the insult. He held up the ledger of unfinished sentences, the pages fluttering in the hot air. Your sentence was issued under a royal ceasefire. The Empire broke its oath to seize your territory. You were imprisoned for a crime that never existed. Valor Ashblind went still. The silence that followed was heavier than the alarms outside.
You read the records, no one reads the records anymore. They only burn them.
I do, and I see a clause. A contract, waiting to be fulfilled. 72 hours. You defend level 97. In exchange, you earn the right to a public trial.
Valor Ashblind stepped forward, the chains rattling violently.
You ask me to serve a man who wears the uniform of my jailers? Why should I trust you? Because I am not asking for your loyalty, I am offering you leverage. If you stay in that cell, you remain a prisoner of a lie. If you step out, you become a witness to the truth. But I need you alive, and I need you dangerous.
Valor Ashblind tilted his head again, listening to the faint sound of water rising in the corridor behind Elias Venn. Dangerous, Valor Ashblind mused. Give me a battlefield, Warden. I have spent 400 years memorizing the sound of my enemy's breathing. Show me who they are. Elias Venn reached out and touched the cold iron bars. The system in his mind flared, bright and urgent. A contract hung in the air, visible only to him. Partial release. Defense of level 97 for 72 hours. He nodded once. Then let us begin. The armory door hissed open, revealing rows of dusty weapons and armor. Elias Venn selected a heavy baton and a set of manacles that hummed with binding magic. Bailiff 9 watched him, wide-eyed.
Warden,
Bailiff 9 whispered.
what are you doing? We need to find the other inmates. The riot.
First, Elias Venn interrupted, checking the charge on the manacles. We secure the command, then we secure the people. He looked at the bailiff. Captain Sarah Dorn is still in the guard quarters. Bailiff 9 nodded.
Yes, Warden. But she does not trust anyone from outside her regiment. She thinks the inmates are planning a mass breakout. Let her think it.
His face hardening.
Fear, then give her a reason to stop shaking.
Turning from the shelves of weaponry, he moved past Bailiff 9, who stood frozen by the doorframe, and headed toward the corridor that led to the guard quarters. Fear is useful only when it points at the right target. Elias Venn kicked open the iron-reinforced door of the guard station. Inside, Captain Sarah Dorn stood by a tactical map table, her hand resting on the hilt of a broadsword that had seen better days. She was flanked by 3 other guards who looked more interested in running than fighting.
Close your mouth, bailiff. We have no time for new wardens who think they can manage Blackgate with paperwork.
Elias Venn stepped into the room, letting the heavy doors slam shut behind him. He placed the manacles on the table between them. You are afraid of a breakout because you think the inmates want freedom. They don't. They want execution. The Crown has locked the exits to turn this level into a mass grave. Sarah Dorn's eyes narrowed, her grip tightening on her sword hilt until her knuckles turned white.
That is treasonous nonsense from a man who just woke up in freezing water. The upper seals are Imperial protocol for containment breach. You are reading the wrong reports. I am reading the ledger.
He tapped the book against his palm.
And I have already secured Ash Cell 13. Valor Ashblind is bound to defend this level, which means you have a choice, Captain. You can stand here and argue with me while the soul-corroding water rises to your neck, or you can take command of the remaining loyal guards and help us hold the line.
One of the guards in the back shifted his weight nervously. Warden, if Valor Ashblind is out, he will kill us all before the sun sets. We are not a suicide squad. Sarah Dorn finally looked at Elias Venn, her gaze sharp and dissecting. He is blind, she said.
And chained. What use is a prisoner who cannot see the enemy? He hears everything, and he knows the sound of betrayal better than any man alive. That is why I brought you here. Because you know how to fight, but you do not yet know what we are fighting against.
Sarah Dorn stared at him for a long moment, the silence stretching thin. Then she stepped away from the map table and drew her sword an inch, the steel singing in the cramped room.
If Valor is your ally, then he is a madman, and I do not follow madmen. You follow order. Right now, order is collapsing. Do you want to be the last captain of Blackgate who died because she refused to adapt?
Sarah Dorn sheathed her sword with a sharp click.
I will listen to your plan. But if this is a trick, Warden, I will cut out your tongue before the water touches my knees. Fair enough.
He pulled the ledger open to a fresh page.
Nera Quill is in Block C. She was sold into Blackgate for a crime she didn't commit. If we can get her out, we gain an assassin who hates the Crown more than she fears death.
Sarah Dorn crossed her arms.
The Red Thread? You think a royal assassin will care about your little justice project? She cares about revenge, and I have a list of names that belong on it. But first, we need to secure the command center. We cannot hold the line if we do not know where the breaches are.
They moved as a unit now, Elias Venn leading with a ledger, Sarah Dorn bringing up the rear with her drawn sword, and Nera Quill appearing from the shadows of Block C like a ghost stepping out of a nightmare. She wore a dark cloak that seemed to absorb the dim light, and her eyes were bright with a manic, hungry energy.
You look terrible, Warden.
Falling into step beside Elias Venn as they navigated the winding stairwells toward the command center.
Drowning suits you. It brings out the desperation in your eyes. I prefer vigorous.
Keeping his eyes on the staircase ahead.
And I would appreciate it if you did not threaten me while I am trying to save us all.
Save us? Nera Quill laughed, a short, sharp sound. You are saving yourself. You think if you survive this, you become someone important. But the Crown does not care who survives. They only care that no one escapes. Sarah Dorn's voice cut through the air from behind them.
Shut up, assassin. If you are here to negotiate, do it quietly. The walls have ears, and half of them are listening for our weakness. Then let them listen.
Glancing back with a grin that showed too many teeth.
Let them hear us planning their destruction. It will make the screaming more entertaining.
Elias Venn reached the top of the stairs and pushed open the heavy doors to the command center. The room was vast, dominated by a massive circular map of Blackgate Deep projected in light from crystal spheres. But the map was wrong. Red zones were spreading.
Look closer, Warden.
Pointing a slender finger at the swirling red patches on the holographic map. Those aren't breaches. Those are seals. They are being actively dismantled from the outside. Sarah Dorn stepped up beside her, her boots heavy on the metal grating of the floor. She squinted at the projection, her face grim in the cold blue light. The chain lift shafts? You mean the transport routes for the new arrivals? I mean the suicide cords, Elias Venn corrected, leaning over the table. He traced a line from the upper ventilation hubs down to the deepest levels of the prison complex. The red zones pulsed with a malignant rhythm, synchronized with the distant thunderous booms echoing through the stone ribs of Blackgate Deep. Demolition charges are set for every exit that leads upward. If I am right, the Crown isn't just locking us in. They are burning the evidence. Chancellor Orsic Vale does not leave loose ends, a voice said from the shadows of the doorway. Princess Morel Ardent stepped into the light, her posture rigid and perfect despite the grime on her prison garb. Her hair was pulled back severely, highlighting the sharp angles of her face and the dark circles under her eyes. She looked less like a prisoner and more like a queen inspecting a ruined throne room. Elias Venn turned to face her, his hand hovering near the manacles at his belt.
You are out of your cell. I walked. The guard who was supposed to be watching me found himself suddenly unable to stand, likely due to a conveniently timed floor collapse orchestrated by Miss Quill's friends in the laundry. Do not look so surprised, Warden. I have had 400 years to study the structural weaknesses of this place.
Nera Quill snorted, crossing her arms over her chest.
He is always surprised when people who hate him show up. It is his tragic flaw. Quiet.
Though she did not draw her sword against the princess.
If you are here to help, state your purpose. If you are here to play politics, do it elsewhere. We have minutes before those charges detonate.
Morel Ardent ignored the captain and fixed her gaze on Elias Venn. Her eyes were cold, calculating, and devoid of warmth.
Your plan is flawed, Warden. You think you can hold level 97 against an Imperial demolition crew with 3 inmates and a handful of terrified guards. You cannot. Then give me a better one.
He did not blink. He had learned early on that hesitation was the only true sin in command.
Or get out of my command center. I can offer you the keys to the Imperial Armory.
Stepping closer to the table, she placed her palm flat against the cold glass of the projection, but not the one here, the one beneath the palace above ground. In exchange, you do not release me. You use me as a pawn to dismantle the Crown's legal framework from the inside. Elias Venn laughed, a dry, humorless sound.
You want to trade information for political leverage? That is not an alliance. That is a hostage negotiation. It is the only kind of deal you can afford. Your allies are unstable. The Demon King hates you. The assassin wants blood. The captain wants order, but she does not know what it is for. I am the only one here who understands that power is not about holding the line. It is about deciding where the line moves.
Sarah Dorn stepped between them, her broadsword clearing its scabbard with a sharp hiss of steel.
She is right about one thing, Warden. We are drowning in a metaphysical problem while trying to solve it with physical weapons. If those charges go off, the soul-corroding water will flood the lower levels in 30 minutes. We need more than just defense. We need countermeasures. And where would we find them?
His voice low and dangerous.
Deputy Warden Hask.
He is the only one who knows the timing of the demolition sequence. He ordered it himself. But he is currently hiding in the chain lift maintenance room at the center of level 97, waiting for the signal to collapse the tunnel behind us.
Elias Venn felt a chill run down his spine that had nothing to do with the freezing water rising in the halls.
Hask knew we were coming. He anticipated you. He expected a terrified clerk who would try to flee. He did not expect a warden who reads contracts.
She looked at Elias Venn, her expression unreadable. Go get him, Warden. Bind him. Make him tell us the truth before the dark takes us all. Elias Venn picked up the ledger of unfinished sentences. The pages were warm to the touch, vibrating with the same frequency as the alarms screaming through the prison. He looked at Nera Quill, then at Sarah Dorn, and finally at Mirel Ardent.
If Hask is lying,
We all die. Then let us hope he prefers living to protecting his masters.
Nera Quill said, drawing a thin, razor-sharp wire from her sleeve. She twirled it between her fingers like a lasso. I will cut his throat if you hesitate, Warden, just so we can move on. Elias Venn turned on his heel, his boots splashing through the shallow flood that had begun to pool on the command center floor. The water was black, oily, and smelled of sulfur and old blood.
we move Nera. You are with me. Sarah, secure the perimeter. If any guard tries to stop us, arrest them. If they resist, neutralize them. Mirel, stay here and keep that map from lying to us.
Mirel Ardent did not look up from the projection. Her fingers traced the red zones as if she were reading Braille. If you fail, Warden, I will burn this city from the inside. Do not mistake my cooperation for loyalty. Elias Venn ignored the threat. He had heard worse from his mother when he forgot to call on her birthday. He led the way out of the command center, Nera Quill falling into step beside him with the silent grace of a predator who knew the prey was already cornered. They descended into the gloom of level 97, where the air grew colder and the screams of the dying echoed off the wet stone walls like rain. The chain lift maintenance room was a cavernous space dominated by the massive iron gears of the lift shaft. Steam hissed from ruptured pipes, obscuring the view. At the far end, huddled behind a desk piled with detonators and scrolls, sat Deputy Warden Hask. He was a small man, dressed in pristine white uniform that seemed untouched by the grime of the prison. He looked up as they approached, his face pale but composed.
Welcome.
He did not reach for a weapon. Instead, he picked up a remote control device with 4 red buttons.
I expected you sooner, Warden Venn. The paperwork alone should have kept you busy for hours. Your paperwork is burning.
Stepping around the desk, she held her wire tight, the metal glinting in the dim light. And so are your exits. Why are we here, Hask? To surrender. Hask smiled, a thin, practiced expression that did not reach his eyes. Surrender is for those who have lost. I have merely changed the venue of our conversation. You think you're saving these inmates. You are prolonging their agony, and your own. Elias Venn stopped 5 feet from the desk. He could see the tremor in Hask's hand holding the remote.
The Crown is flooding the level to kill us. They are sealing the upper exits and corrupting the guards. Why? Because Blackgate Deep is full.
His voice calm.
The seals are failing. The demons, the monsters, the traitors, they are leaking into the world. The Emperor cannot admit that his greatest prison is broken, so he chose a simpler solution. Collapse the foundation, bury the evidence, and give you a choice. A choice?
Elias Venn asked, his voice low.
Abandon the inmates. Walk out with me through the emergency service tunnel beneath my desk. Take this remote. Press the button that opens the tunnel. I will grant you a royal pardon, a noble title, a seat in the Council of Magistrates. You can escape before the water rises. All you have to do is let these monsters drown.
Nera Quill laughed, a harsh, barking sound.
He offers you paradise and asks you to become a monster to get it. How original.
Hask's eyes narrowed. It is not original, it is efficient. You are a clerk, Warden. You understand efficiency. You know that some lives are worth less than the stability of the Empire. Sign the contract. Take the title. Leave them to die. Elias Venn looked at the ledger in his hand. The pages were burning with red light. He felt the weight of the moment, the crushing pressure of authority pressing down on his neck. He could take it. He could save himself. He could become a nobleman and never have to wash his clothes again. But he remembered the face of the woman in cell 4 who had wept for her son. He remembered the silence of Valor Ashblind. He remembered the cold truth that power refused does not prevent cruelty. It only leaves power in worse hands. Hask sighed, disappointed. I expected that. Then you leave me no choice. He pressed the first button on the remote. A loud clang echoed through the shaft as a massive iron gate slammed shut behind them. The steam intensified, filling the room with thick white fog.
I have locked the door. The water will rise in 10 minutes. I suggest you try to swim.
Elias Venn stepped forward, placing the ledger on the desk between them. The book snapped open, its pages fluttering violently as if caught in a wind that did not exist.
You are lying. You didn't press that button to lock the door. You pressed it to start the timer. You want us to run so you can watch us drown.
Hask's smile faltered for a fraction of a second.
I am merely facilitating the process. Then let's facilitate the truth.
He placed his hand on the ledger. The system flared in his mind, blue light cascading from the book and washing over Hask. Judgment event. Deputy Warden Hask. Option A, execution sentence. Facility fear plus 30. Option B, witness contract evidence access plus 1,000. Oath binding accepted. The living. The chain lift screamed as its cables snapped, a sound like the earth tearing open. The car plummeted into the dark, throwing Elias against the reinforced steel wall. He hit the floor hard, the breath driven from his lungs, as the world tilted and spun in violent disarray. For a moment, there was only the roar of falling metal and the sickening lurch of gravity betraying them. Then came the impact. The car slammed into the bottom of the shaft with bone-jarring force, shaking dust from the ceiling and sending shards of concrete skittering across the floor. Silence followed, heavy and absolute, broken only by the groan of settling metal and the ragged sound of their own breathing. Elias pushed himself up, his hands trembling as they scraped against the cold steel. His vision swam, stars dancing behind his eyes, but he forced them to focus. The lights flickered and died, plunging the interior into darkness, save for the eerie, pulsing red of the emergency strobes. He was alive. That much was certain, but so were Mirel and Valor. Mirel's voice cut through the haze, sharp and devoid of panic. She was already moving, her movements precise even in the disorientation.
Valor I am. Inconvenienced.
His tone dry, though Elias could hear the faint rasp of effort in it. My chains remain intact, which is convenient for my continued captivity, though unfortunate for our mobility. Elias pulled himself to his feet, gripping the cracked brass keyring that hung from his belt. It felt cold and heavy, a tangible reminder of the absurdity of their situation. The lift is dead, he said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding his system.
We need to find another way out. There are no other ways out, not in this section. The design of Blackgate is labyrinthine by intent.
Elias frowned, turning toward the source of the Demon King's voice. You know these tunnels? I know what I was told, Valor corrected, and what I have heard in the dark. But there is something else. A vibration. Faint. Old machinery. Dormant, but not dead. Mirel knelt, pressing her ear to the floor. I hear it too, a hum, like a heartbeat. She looked up at Elias, her eyes reflecting the red emergency light.
If there's machinery, there's a source. If there's a source, there might be a path. A path that leads where?
Though he already suspected the answer. He had spent years studying prison architecture, knowing how these places were built to trap and confuse. But Blackgate was different. It was older, deeper.
Down, where the roots of the prison go deep into the earth.
Elias hesitated. Going down meant venturing further into the unknown, away from any chance of rescue from above. But staying put meant waiting for the containment collapse Mirel had mentioned earlier. Then we go down, Elias decided, but we stick together. No one wanders off. Valor let out a short, humorless laugh, as if I had any choice in the matter. My chains bind me to you, jailer. That is the nature of our arrangement. Mirel stood, brushing dust from her uniform. Lead the way, Valor. You know the history here better than any of us. Valor gestured toward a narrow gap in the wall, concealed by debris. Through there, it is a maintenance shaft. Old but serviceable. Elias exchanged a look with Mirel. She nodded, her expression grim but resolute. Together they moved toward the gap, following Vaylor's lead into the darkness. The air grew colder as they descended, thick with the scent of damp stone and something else, something metallic and ancient. After what felt like hours of navigating narrow passages and climbing down rusted ladders, they emerged into a large chamber. It was circular, the walls lined with rows of dormant cells, each door sealed with complex lockwork. In the center of the room stood a raised dais, and upon it a mural depicting figures kneeling before a faceless entity.
We have reached the heart of this particular sector,
His voice echoing in the vast space.
though not its center. That lies elsewhere.
Elias stepped onto the dais, his eyes drawn to the mural. The figures were wardens, dressed in robes that seemed to bleed into the stone itself. They knelt before a formless shape, their hands outstretched in supplication or surrender. It was unsettling, not just for its imagery, but for the feeling it evoked, a sense of profound dread and inevitability.
What is this place?
His hand tightening around the key ring.
A chapel.
Morel whispered, her voice filled with awe and horror.
Of a sort, but to whom? The mural predates the current empire. It's older than any Warden order I know of.
Before Vaylor could answer, the floor beneath them shuddered. From beneath the dais, a door emerged from the stone, made of living black metal that seemed to pulse with a dark energy. As Elias approached it, words flashed in his mind, not spoken aloud, but implanted directly into his consciousness. Restricted area found, cell 0, truth of Blackgate unlocked. Solhar, the system's voice, did not speak. It bloomed in Elias's mind like a bruise spreading under skin, cold and invasive. The text hung in his vision, glowing with the same sickly red as the emergency lights, before dissolving into a new, sharper command. Truth of Blackgate unlocked, Soul Harvest Facility. Morel stepped back, her boots scraping against the stone floor. She stared at the mural above them, where the faceless god seemed to lean forward in the shadows of the painted stone. Soul Harvest, she repeated, the word tasting like ash. That is not a prison design, that is an industrial one. Vaylor shifted his weight, the heavy chains clinking softly. He was facing the door, his blind eyes fixed on the pulsing black metal as if he could see through its surface. It smells of it, he said.
The air here is stale with old blood. My people called it the choir below. We thought it a myth, a story to frighten children into obedience. It is real.
His hand tightening on the brass keyring until the metal bit into his palm. He looked at the door. The black metal writhed slightly, like muscle beneath skin. The system says this is cell 0, the first cell, Vaylor corrected, or the last. In Blackgate, there is no difference between where things begin and where they end. Morel moved closer to Elias, her shoulder brushing his arm. We need to leave this room. Now, if that thing is a harvest engine, opening it might be the trigger for whatever collapse we're trying to avoid. He placed his hand on the black metal. It was warm, feverish. The system flooded his mind again, not with text this time, but with an offer that felt like ice water poured down his spine. Voice of the choir detected. Inheritance offer. Become voice of the choir condition. Feed one innocent soul to the door.
Did you see it?
Her voice low.
Your eyes just went white.
Elias pulled his hand back as if burned. He looked at Vaylor. The Demon King was smiling, a thin, cruel expression that didn't reach his eyes.
You heard it too. The price of authority. A simple transaction. What price?
Elias demanded.
One life, an innocent one. Not you, jailer. You are too valuable to the system. But anyone else. The prisoner next door, perhaps. Or the little princess standing behind you.
Morel stiffened. She didn't move away from Elias, but her posture went rigid, like a bowstring drawn to its breaking point.
Do not, I am merely stating facts.
He turned his head toward Elias.
The choir offers you full control over Blackgate. All levels, all cells. You could stop the flood, you could save them all, but only if you feed it.
Elias looked at the door. The black metal pulsed faster, anticipating his choice.
The system says I am an unauthorized warden.
His voice steady despite the tremor in his hands.
It revoked my authority because I have no right to rule here.
Then take it, Vaylor urged. He leaned forward, his chains rattling. Take it by force of will. The system recognizes need above law. Feed the door, and you become the Warden King they fear. Morel grabbed Elias's wrist. Her grip was iron.
No, Don't listen to him. It's a trap. Every trap looks like salvation until you're inside. I know.
He looked at Valor. The Demon King waited, eager for the corruption he was sure would come. Elias turned back to the door. He raised his free hand, not to touch it, but to point at it. The cracked brass keyring glinted in the red light. The choir below murmurs, "Give me one innocent little jailer, and I will save 1,000. Valor's smile widened. "See, it speaks to you." Elias shook his head. "Then you have misunderstood what kind of monster I am." The reaction was instantaneous. The warm pulse of the door turned icy cold. The system voice returned harsh and final, shattering the silence like glass. Choice refused, Warden authority revoked. A sound erupted from deep beneath their feet, a groan of metal and stone that vibrated in their teeth. The mural above them cracked, the faceless god's head falling away in a shower of dust.
What did you do?
Mirel screamed over the rising noise.
I told it no.
He grabbed her arm and pulled her toward Valor.
Run.
Valor was already moving, dragging his chains toward the tunnel exit. "Foolish child. You have locked the Valor's chains rattled like breaking bones as he lunged for the tunnel entrance. Foolish child, you have locked the gate while the house burns." Mirel grabbed Elias's other arm, her fingers digging into his tunic with desperate strength. "Elias, move. Now." Elias didn't pull away. He kept his eyes on the door, watching the black metal harden, turning from warm flesh to cold stone. The red emergency lights flickered, dying one by one until the chapel was plunged into a gray, suffocating darkness. Only the glow of Valor's eyes remained, faint and predatory in the gloom.
The lock is gone.
His voice was flat, stripped of hope.
The system didn't just revoke my authority, it took the key.
You broke it. You stood there with a moral high ground and smashed your own neck on it. Do you hear that? That is not the sound of salvation. That is the sound of the dampeners failing.
A deep, grinding shriek echoed from below the dais. It sounded like 1,000 tons of iron being dragged across gravel. The floor tilted sharply, throwing Mirel to one knee. Elias caught her shoulder, anchoring them both as the world beneath them groaned in protest. "We need to get to the upper levels," Mirel gasped, scrambling up. She wiped dust from her face, her eyes wide with a terror she usually kept locked behind a mask of regal composure. "If the dampeners are failing, the soul water will rise in minutes. We won't drown in water. We'll drown in memories." Elias looked at Bailiff 9, who had appeared in the tunnel mouth, pale and shaking, holding a rusted shotgun with white-knuckled grip. The bailiff's eyes darted between the door and Elias.
Bailiff? Status on the lifts?
Bailiff 9 shook his head violently.
Gone. Severed. But there are maintenance shafts behind the chapel wall. Mirel was right. They lead to the old pneumatic tubes. They might still be pressurized.
Mirel pushed past Elias, moving toward the shadowed corner of the chamber where the debris from the collapsing mural had piled up. She knelt, brushing away chunks of stone. "Here. The grate is loose." She pulled at a rusted iron bar, muscles straining in her arms. With a screech of protesting metal, the grate gave way, revealing a dark square hole. A rush of stale, dry air hissed out from below.
It's narrow.
He stood back, his chains clinking softly against the stone.
And it drops straight down into the bowels of the prison. You call this an escape route? It is a chute for waste. For us, it is a ladder.
He looked at Mirel.
Go first.
Mirel hesitated, looking back at him. "You're not coming?" Elias touched the cracked brass keyring in his pocket. The metal was cold now, inert and dead.
I have to make sure Bailiff 9 gets clear. Then I'm next. Leave him.
His voice was calm now, almost gentle. It was more terrifying than the screaming had been. "You are a symbol, Warden, even a broken one. If you die here, your death becomes a martyrdom. They will sing songs about the jailer who refused the choir. Songs that might inspire others to refuse too." Elias froze. He looked at Valor. The Demon King's blind face was tilted upward, as if listening to something far away. "What are you saying?" "I am saying," Valor continued, "that your refusal just changed the calculus. The system did not revoke your authority because it punished you. It revoked it because it no longer needed to bargain with you. You are now outside the contract. And outlaws do not get protections." A loud clank echoed from deep within the shaft Mirella had uncovered. Something heavy fell into the darkness below, followed by a wet splatter.
Mirella, in the hole. Now.
Mirelle didn't argue. She climbed in, disappearing into the dark square of air. Bailiff 9 scrambled after her, shotgun held tight against his chest. He looked back at Elias once, then turned and vanished. Elias stayed for a second longer watching Valor. The Demon King was waiting. He wasn't running, he wasn't trying to escape. He was simply standing in the center of the chapel, listening to the groaning of the prison around him.
Why aren't you coming?
Valor smiled. It was a sad, weary smile.
I am not afraid of the flood, jailer. I have drowned before. And this.
He gestured to the walls, to the mural, to the dark door. This is my home. You are running from your failure. I am staying for it. Elias turned and ran. He dove into the hole just as the floor of the chapel gave way with a thunderous crash. The darkness swallowed him whole, and then the sound of rushing water filled his ears.